Chapter 1335. The peerless Emperor Wu Shuang was a powerful existence that was simply indescribable. All adjectives, when used on him, seemed to become a synonym for powerlessness and emptiness. However, there was no need to describe it at all. Everyone knew that he was the pinnacle of existence in the world, and no one could surpass him. In the heaven realm, in the Tong Tian Tower, in the whole world, only he could be called unprecedented and unparalleled. Regarding this, even the demon dragon, who had been fighting hard for several days, deeply agreed with it. The peerless Emperor Wu Shuang was definitely not an opponent that could be easily challenged. If there was another choice, another way to go, the demon dragon would definitely not make the move to start a war with him. Only after fighting. Only then did he know and truly understand the strength of this opponent. And now, Ji Zun actually dared to use the identity of a young junior. Moreover, she used the body of a woman who had always given others a feeling of weakness and powerlessness to challenge a senior who had never been surpassed by anyone for tens of thousands of years. This really made the demon dragon's heart tremble. At least, this courage was enough to look down on all the heroes in the world. You are not my opponent, little girl, not to mention you who only cultivated for 1,000 years, even if Fei Wenli who had not appeared for 10,000 years came, even if she was the conqueror queen who had the power to devour heaven and earth, she would not be able to make my will bow down. Even for a second. Young man, go back and cultivate for 10,000 years, and then come back to challenge me. The peerless emperor snorted coldly, and on his golden body, a radiant divine power comparable to the sun instantly emerged. He raised his right hand and pressed it down, letting this unique and unparalleled radiant divine power penetrate the entire broken world of the 10th floor of the heaven stairway. Then, with the irresistible Ji Zun's will, he released this unique law to his heart's content, until the end of the world. Just at this moment, between heaven and earth, only the existence of his will, other than that, nothing else could coexist. Huh! The demon dragon only saw a blur in front of him. When he regained his senses and looked again, he realized that he had been thrown out of the 10th floor of the heaven stairway by the peerless unparalleled precepts. He had even been thrown out of the Tong Tian Tower and returned to the heaven realm. The anger in his heart suddenly erupted like a volcano. The demon dragon stretched out his giant golden hand and forcibly tore apart the spatial barrier of an unknown place in the heaven realm. At the same time, he roared at the sky, "Peerless Emperor, you bastard, you actually held back in the previous battle. You dare to look down on your uncle demon dragon, you make me so angry. I don't care anymore, even if it's like this, I will still go all out. If Tong Tian Tower collapses, it has nothing to do with me. It's all your fault, you damned bastard, how dare you hide your strength." However, at this moment, he had been thrown far away from Tong Tian Tower. Even if he had supreme divine strength, it was unlikely that he would be able to rush back to the duel immediately. The heaven realm was vast and complicated, and there were many passageways. Without any guidance, it would be impossible to accurately locate the heaven-reaching pagoda in a short time. It's really annoying. After spending so much effort, I finally got rid of this raging bull. After being sealed for 100,000 years, he's still so belligerent. Has this guy never reflected on himself? Next, let's proceed to the second stage. We've already wasted too much time. Peerless Emperor was not feeling good either. After all, the demon dragon's fists were not for nothing. Before the demon dragon rushed back, Peerless Emperor decided to do something serious. According to his plan, now it was time to implement the second stage. Just as Peerless Emperor was about to teleport and leave the 10th floor of the heaven stairway, he suddenly stopped moving. He turned his head back with a slightly stunned expression. "What's going on? Weren't you banished under my peerless law?" Ji Zun's figure, like the rising sun, appeared little by little. Her face was as calm as ever, Senior, your peerless law is very strong. It can be said that it's unparalleled in the world. Once it's unleashed, no one can match it. Even that stupid demon dragon was expelled by you. However, this does not mean that you can do whatever you want. I am also the sovereign of Heaven Tower, and I have always been, not only in the past, present, and future. The divine light condensed like a crystal, not leaking a single bit from Ji Zun's skin. However, it was precisely because of this divine power that the law-born could maintain its eternal self under peerless law. The law you're comprehending is actually the sovereign law. When Peerless Emperor saw it, his face was moved, and a shocked expression appeared for the first time. How is it possible? You've only cultivated for 1,000 years. Moreover, how could the world give birth to such a supreme sovereign law? This is not something that a woman's will can comprehend at all. Even Fei Wenli, that little girl, doesn't dare to cultivate like this. How did you do it? Can't a woman become a sovereign? Ji Zun never thought there was anything wrong with this. Emperor Wushuang didn't know what to say for a moment. He really didn't know how the little girl in front of him cultivated. He also didn't know what kind of master she had to teach her the cultivation method of women are the most supreme in the world. He slept in the Black Tower and didn't know that the woman in front of him never had a master. She had been comprehending on her own, cultivating on her own. As for the cultivation method of, I am the only one in the world, no one had ever taught her. It was just her nature and the direction of her cultivation. Perhaps loneliness was her teacher. In the endless years of loneliness, in the days when she quietly waited for the birth of her younger brother, only loneliness accompanied her. Unknowingly, she became the most powerful sovereign in the world. Senior, let's fight. I really want to see how powerful Peerless Emperor, whom no one dared to say they could surpass for tens of thousands of years, and how deeply hidden his true strength is. Ji Zun didn't summon her grimoire, but just unsealed and released the extremely compressed divine power in her body. A divine statue that was over 6,000 meters tall appeared behind her. Her appearance was no different from that of a sovereign. However, she wore a crown on her head, and the spirit pearls inlaid on it shone brilliantly. On her forehead, which was as clear as jade, was a unique emblem that represented her own godhood. From the supreme godly armor that covered her whole body and the divine halo behind her that was even brighter than the sun's flames, one could tell that this was a battle-type godhood. 6,000 meters tall, and it's the first time it's unsealed. Peerless Emperor was shocked. He found that he urgently needed to change his original fixed views. In just 1,000 years of cultivation, she had reached an incredible height of 6,000 meters. How did this little girl cultivate? No wonder she dared to challenge him. This little girl, who was known as the human sovereign, really couldn't be taken lightly. Sword. Ji Zun naturally knew the difference between 6,000 meters and 10,000 meters. She was not arrogant but came prepared. When the divine power in her body was unsealed for the second time, the 6,000 meters tall divine statue didn't increase at all. It floated in front of Peerless Emperor's 10,000 meters tall body, like a female warrior in front of a giant, still unable to look at the same level. However, after the vast divine power erupted, it perfectly combined with the humanoid divine weapon that was originally flying around Ji Zun's shoulder, instantly transforming into an 18-winged blood angel that was 3,000 meters tall. Peerless Emperor was stunned. Why didn't she add the divine power she cultivated to herself, but pour it into the humanoid divine weapon? No matter how much divine power she had, it shouldn't be wasted like this, right? Didn't her master teach her that the real achievement was to add divine power to one's own body? This little girl's cultivation path was obviously wrong. But then again, how could she still have such terrifying divine power and such high achievements if her cultivation path was wrong? What the hell was going on? Ji Zun stretched out her hand, and the 18-winged blood angel transformed in the beautiful and endless rainbow brilliance. Sword transformation. In front of Ji-Zun was a 3,000 meters long divine sword of life. When the statue behind Ji-Zun held the sword, with a shout, all things on the entire 10 levels of the heaven's stairway bowed under the rule of Ji-Zun. Even the golden body of Peerless Emperor was instantly suppressed, his feet sinking deep into the ground, up to his knees. At this time, the eyes of Ji-Zun's statue were almost at the same level as the golden body that was sunk deep into the ground. Moreover, in her hand, there was an additional divine sword of life. Interesting, I'm really surprised. Peerless Emperor looked up to the sky and laughed. The little girl in front of him had already gained his recognition. This was already an opponent worthy of fighting, just like the demonic dragon before. Kill! Ji-Zun waved her slender hand forward. The statue behind her immediately held the sword above her head, moved forward, and slashed down at Peerless Emperor, who was 10,000 meters away. Heaven and earth cracked, and the sky of the 10th floor of the Tong Tian Tower was slashed by the divine sword of life, leaving a terrifying sword scar that was difficult to erase and almost permanent. Under the sword, Peerless Emperor's eyes shone with the divine light of the sun and moon. He did not fight head-on like in the battle with the demonic dragon, but held up a thick shield of divine power with one hand. While defending against the divine sword of life, he pressed forward at an extreme speed. His other hand clenched into a giant fist, and with the power of wind, fire, and thunder, he crushed everything in his path, including the space. He punched toward the supreme divine body's face with incomparable ferocity. A fist for a sword. This was Peerless Emperor's response. Even if it was the most outstanding junior who challenged him in the most heroic manner, he was still the unparalleled Peerless Emperor in the heavens and earth. The demonic dragon could not take advantage of him, and now this young junior still could not. Not to mention her, even if the proudest and craziest martial arts fanatic from the upper realm came, he would have the same answer. Because my name is Peerless Emperor. Ji-Zun and the supreme divine statue behind her, with a loud bang, were sent flying 200 kilometers away. On the ground, a deep mark was left. This was Peerless Emperor's answer to any challenger in the world. My name is Peerless Emperor, unparalleled in the world. What a fast sword! Peerless Emperor sent Ji-Zun flying with a punch, but there was no joy on his face. On the contrary, his expression was serious, and the divine light of the sun and moon in his eyes was more of a kind of fanaticism that was close to hunger for battle. His left hand, which was holding the divine shield high, had a crack on all 3 fingers. That was the wound left by Ji-Zun's divine sword of life after splitting the divine shield. If it was not for the sword to defend against his fist, it was believed that it would not only be 3 fingers that were injured. Peerless Emperor reached down and touched the left rib on his waist, where there was a delicate footprint. This footprint was not caused by the demonic dragon, but by Ji-Zun's counterattack before she withdrew her sword to defend. Really a little girl who refuses to suffer losses. Peerless Emperor now understood the fact that the little girl in front of him was not as easy to provoke as the demonic dragon just now. At least, her close combat ability was not inferior to that bull-like demonic dragon. Peerless Emperor pondered for a moment and suddenly sighed, I really want to have a good fight with you. You are a rare opponent, more interesting than that demonic dragon. Ji-Zun waited quietly. She knew that what Peerless Emperor wanted to say was not this. Unfortunately, I promised someone else. Now I have to go and do something else. Peerless Emperor stretched out his hands and clapped them together. The divine power instantly exploded like the sun, sweeping the whole world. Even the voice behind him was annihilated. I will wait for you in the Black Tower, and that Yu Titan. Chapter 1336. Heaven Realm, Radiance Mountain, in front of the Divine Palace. The battle between Yu Yang and eternal hatred was still going on. Moreover, Yu Yang had already knocked eternal hatred to the ground for the 108th time, but eternal hatred was still alive and kicking like an undying cockroach. There were no signs of him being seriously injured. He was in a sorry state and was in pain. Under the attack of the Moon of Destiny and the Illusion Moon Divine Power, he, a divine-level expert who had lived for tens of thousands of years, was beaten like a dog by Yu Yang. However, eternal hatred was still a divine-level expert. His divine power was immeasurable. Any injury on his body could be healed quickly, and his battle power was not greatly affected. At the same time, he realized that Yu Yang did not know how to use the Illusion Moon Divine Power at all. Although it was effective, it could not display half of its power. If it was the real owner of the Illusion Moon Divine Power, the result would probably be different. Have you had enough? Eternal hatred had lived for tens of thousands of years, but he had never been as angry as he was today. Of course, he had never been in such a sorry state. Just a little bit more, let me explode your anus a few more times. Yu Yang seemed to be very interested in exploding other people's anus. As soon as he finished speaking, he slid out of the gap between the heart-piercing divine spear like a fish. He dodged eternal hatred's purple gold divine halberd. His body slid across the ground. Just like a little hooligan, he kicked towards the sky, right in the middle of eternal hatred's crotch. If it was not for the Moon of Destiny's eternal stagnation, eternal hatred would have 100 ways to dodge, and even take the opportunity to counterattack Yu Yang with 1,000 kicks and 10,000 halberds. But now he, who was like a zombie, couldn't do anything. He could only watch helplessly as his opponent's big foot made intimate contact with his lower body. Even though there was no sound of his balls breaking, it was enough to make everlasting hatred feel extremely humiliated and ashamed. This old man will not let you off today. Eternal hatred was so angry that his whole body was trembling. Where's your egg? Not only did she not stop after hitting him, this curious baby was still pursuing the most secretive question. Go to hell. Eternal hatred thundered. Without eggs, how did you give birth to your 19 great-grandchildren? Yu Yang was baffled, but a thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately understood. He slapped the back of his head with his palm. Ayaya, I've been wondering why that idiot captain doesn't look like you at all. It turns out that he's an egg laid by another rooster. Everlasting hatred's eyes were about to split open. His divine power burst out completely. Heart-piercing divine spears densely covered the sky. All of them disappeared. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a terrifying Azura hell, with countless spikes growing all over the place. The entire Azura world covered the entire Brilliance Mountain, with only Yu Yang and the eternal hatred inside. A scarlet rain of blood poured down from the sky, accompanied by a bone-chilling wind that blew across the entire thorny hell. Yu Yang calmed down and looked around. He realized that there was no sun or moon in the Hell of Needles, only blood and needles existed. At this moment, everlasting hatred was like a madman, madly rushing to the sky. In the sky, he was greeted by billions of sharp and flexible needles. Anyhow, people with trypophobia would spit out so many needles at a glance, and all of them pierced into everlasting hatred's body. That disgusting scene made Yu Yang's heart twitch. A howl that was thousands of times more painful than death by 1,000 cuts burst out from everlasting hatred's mouth. He, who was covered in spikes, was howling at the top of his lungs. Not knowing whether it was because of his howl or because of other reasons, the blood rain in the sky became denser and faster. The ground full of spikes began to accumulate into a pool of blood, and it was rising at a speed visible to the naked eye, diffusing and spreading, while pressing towards the soles of Yu Yang's feet that were suspended in the air. Can creating a hell negate the Moon of Destiny? Yu Yang was about to burst out the Illusion Moon Divine Power again, but before he could do so, his face suddenly changed. He suddenly had a feeling. This terrifying and disgusting hell of needles was not an illusion of everlasting hatred, but a real existence. Radiance Mountain was a prison of God, so it was impossible that it did not have any methods of punishment or punishment for disobedient criminals. The hell of needles should be one of them. But as time passed, the prison guards colluded with the prisoners, and these hell of needles gradually turned into tools and means for them to establish their divine might. Just like everlasting hatred in front of him, he could not escape from the hell of needles, but he could pull his enemies into it, and after suffering the pain of the needles, he could destroy the laws, and make Yu Yang suffer the punishment of the laws. If Yu Yang made a move, it would be seen as a confrontation. Perhaps in the next second, he would be punished and punished 1,000 times more. You found out? Ha ha ha, unfortunately, you found out too late. If the first drop of blood rain fell on your body, if the first needle pierced my body, you might have been able to escape by borrowing the divine power of the moon of destiny. But now, no matter what you do, it's too late. You must suffer the pain of the needles with me, and you will suffer 100 times, 1,000 times more than me. Struggling out of the needles, everlasting hatred, whose body was covered in needles, laughed crazily. You old ghost, you're so vicious. Yu Yang finally understood why everlasting hatred did not attack him, but instead pounced towards the Needle Mountain like a madman. It turned out that he wanted him to suffer more pain. Cry, shout, and then wail in this hell of needles forever. Everlasting hatred had never hated a person so much. He decided in his heart, every time Titan Yu suffered 100 times or 1,000 times more pain than him, he would attack the Needle Mountain again, and let him be imprisoned in this hell of needles forever, suffering forever, unable to escape. This was originally his prison cell. But now, he needed another cellmate. Although Titan Yu, who came from the countryside of Tong Tian Tower, made him extremely unhappy, everlasting hatred did not care what kind of person his cellmate was. The more he hated the enemy, the more he needed to share this punishment and pain with them. In this world, was there any music more beautiful than the wailing of his enemy? Yu Yang carefully stretched out his hand, and with his index finger, he lightly touched one of the needles. Before he could even touch it, his hand retracted like lightning. Even so, he was in so much pain that he hissed and clenched his teeth. F***ck. Who actually thought of this hell of needles? This needle pricking a person's body is too painful. Yu Yang was in so much pain that his vision blurred. He sucked on his finger for a long time, but he still could not recover. Enjoy it, you have enough time to enjoy all of this. Originally, all of this belonged to me alone, but now, you will also be the owner of this place. Furthermore, you can enjoy everything I have 1,000 times more. Don't think that this is all. No, this is only the beginning, your pain is far from here. Everlasting hatred was like a madman, constantly stabbing needles into his body, while screaming in a perverted manner. His distorted face and pierced body were filled with an indescribable terror. Everlasting hatred not only stabbed needles into his body, but also poured blood on his body. The blood rain, the blood, every drop, burned on his body. Everlasting hatred's godly body was like a mortal's body that had encountered fire, and a tragic wail resounded throughout the entire hell of needles. Facing Yu Yang's dumbfounded gaze, everlasting hatred's eyes were filled with the pleasure of revenge and thirst for hatred. Don't worry, you will soon enjoy everything I have, and it will definitely be 100 or 1,000 times more. Don't be too envious of me, all of this, you will have a share. If you feel that it's not enough, I can increase it for you at any time, ha 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 ha. Yu Yang was scared by this madman and almost peed his pants. However, he was not a stubborn idiot. If this young master couldn't beat him, couldn't he just hide? What prison, what hell of needles, it has nothing to do with me. I am not a criminal. Since he couldn't kill everlasting hatred, this old bastard, why would he still stay in this pain in the ass place? Even if the needles here didn't pierce people, they still looked terrifying. Wasn't this the legendary trypophobia? Yu Yang prepared to teleport and leave this space. Everlasting Hatred, who had been staring at him, suddenly looked up to the sky and laughed. Ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Do you think you can leave this hell of needles? What a clever genius from Tong Tian Tower, what a delusional idiot. If it was so easy to leave the god prison, why would I still be trapped here for tens of thousands of years to suffer? You are not the first person to enter this hell, and you are also not the first idiot to want to leave. However, do I have to tell you that there are already 67 geniuses like you buried under this pool of blood? Before your divine power is exhausted, you won't be able to commit suicide even if you want to, because this is the real hell, a god's prison that can even imprison god rankers. Any beast, inherent skill, law or even divine spark would not be able to go against the ancient god's prison. Unless you could surpass the ancient god. Otherwise, this place would be a prison forever. Looking at Yu Yang's pale face, looking at his expression of disbelief, Everlasting Hatred felt extremely comfortable. A kind of pleasure spread crazily in his body like poison. He couldn't help but laugh wildly towards the sky. When he laughed most excitedly, he plunged into the mountain of needles again, letting those dense needles pierce through his skull, deep into his bone marrow, and even deep into his brain. He believed that any pain that he had to endure would be added 1,000 times to the young man in front of him, even if it wasn't immediately, but in the near future. No matter if it was sooner or later, this brat would have to endure it eventually. Moreover, it would be 100 times more than his. At that time, watching him wail endlessly in the mountain of needles, it would be even more pleasurable and comfortable. Ha 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 ha. Whenever enduring hatred thought of this, he would feel a boundless sense of pleasure. It seemed that the pain of the god's punishment of needles had also weakened. After a carefree and satisfied laughter, Everlasting Hatred finally turned his gaze towards his new companion, his new cellmate, who was about to face a tragedy. In the next moment, he would be able to enjoy the pain and tragedy of the other party. What kind of reaction would this brat have? Would he cry bitterly, curse, or even commit suicide in vain? A great show was about to begin. As the only spectator, Everlasting Hatred felt that his excitement had reached its limit. If it increased a little more, he believed that he would erupt like a volcano. However, just when Everlasting Hatred thought that he could enjoy himself to his heart's content, an unforeseen event made him feel like an otaku who was about to take off his pants, only to find out that it was Sister Feng who was depressed. God damn Titan you! He had actually disappeared. In this hell of needles where it was impossible to leave, this damned Titan you had actually disappeared. Everlasting Hatred felt as if his brain had exploded, as if he was going to go crazy immediately. This was impossible. Chapter 1337. At the Gate of the Shrine. Yu Yang was leisurely walking up the steps, like a traveler enjoying the flowers. No one knew that he had just returned from the Hell of Needles. The captain was not on duty, and the confident old man Chang Hen was trapped in his own prison. At the foot of the bright mountain, no one could stop Yu Yang from moving forward. Some shrine guards or believers found Yu Yang, but they did not dare to stop him. They were no longer as arrogant as before. Even if they saw Yu Yang walking up the steps from afar, no one dared to stop him. They just hurriedly ran to report. Soon, Yu Yang came to a receiving platform. This was originally a receiving platform for believers to worship in all directions. The wind, fire, water and earth shrines all set up huge statues here. At the same time, they were attached with crystal pillars to facilitate the movement of believers. The demolition work had begun, but which shrine should he flatten first? Yu Yang held his chin and thought about this problem. Wind shrine? Water shrine or fire shrine? Just as Yu Yang was looking at the statues and crystal pillars one by one, trying to find the most suitable target, a short old man, carrying a black fish basket on his back and an emerald green fishing rod in his hand, walked over with a smile. This old man's attitude was unusually friendly, as if he had seen a friend and relative. He shouted at Yu Yang, "Boy, why are you here?" Yu Yang was surprised. He carefully looked at this smiling old man. "I don't seem to know you? Aren't you the third young master of the Yu clan in the soaring dragon continent of Tong Tian Tower?" The old man knew Yu Yang, and it seemed that he was very familiar with him. "That's right, but you are?" Yu Yang touched the back of his head. He was a little confused. He didn't have any relatives or friends in the central shrine. Why did this old man act like he was familiar with him? Moreover, it didn't look like a disguise. In the central shrine, weren't they all enemies? How could there be such a strange old man? "I'm the famous Fan Jiang. Sigh, I forgot that you are too young. You must have never heard of it. It's okay, you can call me fishing expert. I like it when people call me fishing expert." Yu Yang had never heard of the old man's famous name, Fan Jiang, before. Ever since he became the new prison emperor, he had read a lot of Tong Tian Tower's history book. There were even some secret and hidden histories, but the name Fan Jiang had never appeared before. Could it be that this old man was also a senior of Tong Tian Tower? Was it just that too much time had passed and history had forgotten about it? "Fishing expert, there are no fish in your basket." Yu Yang looked inside and realized that this fishing expert was even worse than him. There wasn't even a single fish hair. "How dare you call yourself a fishing expert? Even an expert's fish basket doesn't have any fish." The old man's face turned red as he tried his best to defend himself. Yu Yang was speechless. It was an idiotic act to discuss fishing with a fishing idiot. Yu Yang decided that he would never talk to this old man about fishing, not even about fish. He finally understood that this fishing expert was no better than Fatty Hai, who would doze off when fishing and would snore when he slept, scaring away all the fish. The old man waited for a long time and realized that the brat in front of him had no intention of flattering or boasting about his fishing skills. He couldn't help but feel bored. No matter what, he was still a senior. This brat didn't give him any face at all. This was too hateful. Were the juniors these days all so rude? Yu Yang wasn't a shameless guy like Fatty Hai. Although it was common to flatter seniors, it was impossible for him to flatter a fishing idiot as a fishing expert. Thus, a certain third young master looked up at the sky and pretended not to see the old man's desire to be flattered and flattered. After waiting for a long time, the old man finally lost his patience and hurriedly said, "Fishing is an extremely profound skill. When I'm free, a fishing expert, will give you some pointers. Now, I'll enlighten you in other aspects, lest you act like a wild child who has no parents and no one to discipline you. You'll be laughed at by others." As long as it wasn't fishing skills. As for other aspects, Yu Yang was still interested. "Hey, isn't this Senior Man Jiang? It's an honor to see Senior here today." Yu Yang's moral integrity had already fallen to the ground. "It's the famous Fan Jiang." The old man quickly corrected when he heard that something was wrong. Although a certain third young master had called his name wrongly, it was still worth forgiving for a young junior to make a small mistake occasionally. Especially when he was a magnanimous senior, he couldn't be bothered with him. "The weather is really good today. Has Senior Man Jiang had breakfast? Why don't I treat you?" The third young master warmly held the old man's hand. "Not Man Jiang, it's the famous Fan Jiang." The old man patiently corrected the junior's mistake. "The famous Senior Man Jiang, I've heard of him since I was 3 years old." The third young master expressed that the senior's name was like a bolt from the blue. You should just call me fishing expert." The old man realized that it was not easy to correct this junior's mistake. Could it be that his reputation was too shocking, causing this junior to be so excited that he couldn't control himself and called him by the wrong name? No matter what, it was worth forgiving for a junior to make a small mistake. His name was not important. In any case, he was an extremely low-key senior who lived in seclusion in the city. Calling him fishing expert was more suitable for his current identity. How could a junior like me casually call senior by his elegant name? Wouldn't that be disrespectful? The third young master hurriedly waved his hand. It's all right, I've always been approachable. The old man had an amiable smile on his face. To be able to meet such an approachable senior, I'm really lucky. The third young master once again held the old man's hand and shook it up and down. The old man was very satisfied with the third young master's enthusiasm and worship. If there's anything in the future, just say my name. This old man will protect you. The old man smiled like a chrysanthemum flower. Senior is too great. The third young master directly gave a thumbs up. It's nothing. I've always liked to take care of the juniors. Who made me a senior who doesn't care about himself? The old man was so happy that he wanted to laugh. Senior, why are you here today? Yu Yang felt strange. If this old man was a senior of Tong Tian Tower, why wasn't he in Tong Tian Tower, but in Radiance Mountain's central shrine? Isn't there a saying that the most dangerous place is the safest? During the war between Tong Tian Tower and Radiance Mountain, there was no place in the Heaven Realm that was safe. I decided to infiltrate into the enemy's territory, confuse the enemy, disguise myself as a fisherman, and hide myself. Kid, how is it? Isn't my disguise very ingenious? I've been hiding here for tens of thousands of years, and no one has discovered me. Ha 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 ha, this old man is truly hiding behind the enemy's back. The old man was beaming with joy as his saliva flew everywhere. Did you win or lose that war? Yu Yang couldn't help but be curious. Of course we won. If it weren't for some old ghosts supporting Radiance Mountain, it would have been flattened by our Tong Tian Tower long ago. In the old man's era, Tong Tian Tower was still very powerful, completely different from the bitter situation now. Yu Yang really wanted to smack this old man to death with a brick, then drag him away and bury him. If we won, we could just directly destroy Radiance Mountain. Why are you still hiding? After disguising as a fisherman for tens of thousands of years, this old man's fishing skills have greatly improved, and I've already become a fishing expert. This is really an unintentional result. Of course, for a genius like me, I can learn anything very quickly. The old man stroked his white beard, showing a smug expression that said, Kid, you have to learn from me. Yu Yang looked at the empty fish basket. Was this the fishing skills that had greatly improved in tens of thousands of years? Don't be too envious of this old man. Some people have some talent that can't be envied. The old man thought that Yu Yang was sad, and hurriedly comforted him, but no matter how you look at it, it sounded like he was showing off. Yu Yang even had the heart to bury this old man alive. After an unusually strenuous conversation, Yu Yang finally understood that this old man was really a senior of Tong Tian Tower, and not an enemy in disguise. Moreover, he was an old ghost that had lived for who knows how many thousands of years. As for why this old man didn't return to Tong Tian Tower for tens of thousands of years, but stayed in Radiance Mountain, that was purely a manifestation of his idiocy. An idiot didn't need to do anything strange. On the contrary, if an idiot suddenly did something normal, then be careful, it might be a sign of the end of the world. Since it was really a senior, even if he was an idiot, Yu Yang's tensed heart still secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The feeling of having a senior protecting him was not bad. If this senior wasn't an idiot, then the feeling would be even better. After discussing fishing skills, the senior and Yu Yang discussed camouflage. After discussing camouflage, the senior excitedly discussed fishing skills with Yu Yang. If Yu Yang was fatty high, then the two of them would definitely have a good conversation. However, although Yu Yang's moral integrity often fell to the ground, he was still a normal person after all. At the end of the discussion, Yu Yang finally couldn't take it anymore, and hurriedly left. Senior, it's getting late, I still have something to do. Let's have a meal together when you're free, it's my treat. The third young master had never treated the senior to a meal before, but it didn't affect his promise. "All right, let's contact each other when we're free." The senior was reluctant to part. It was rare to meet a young man who could listen to his fishing skills. However, just as Yu Yang was about to slip away, he immediately reacted. "Hey, wait, brat, what are you going to do?" "Demolish the house." Yu Yang's tone was obviously that of a demolition officer. "I'm going to demolish the house where?" The old man also had a talent for doing bad things. As soon as he heard about demolishing the house, he immediately signed up. "It's here, Mount Brightness." "Senior, don't you think there are too many houses here? The buildings here are not in line with the development and planning of a harmonious society, so I've decided to demolish all of them and rebuild a new one." "Why, are you interested, Senior?" Yu Yang didn't think that this old man would help. If he wanted to demolish the house, he would have done it in the past 10,000 years. Why would he wait until now? "The buildings here are not in line with what?" The old man didn't understand, but he finally understood Yu Yang's intention to demolish Mount Brightness. "Senior, you should continue fishing. No matter how big the matter is, you shouldn't delay your hobby. Moreover, this is a small matter, just leave it to me, a young junior. There's no need to trouble Senior." Yu Yang never counted on this old senior. As long as this stupid old man with unfathomable strength wasn't an enemy, he would be satisfied. "Leave it to you? Brat, you're still lacking. Mount Brightness isn't something you can demolish just because you want to. Other than me, it's not easy for others to demolish it. Although you're a little abnormal compared to me, you're still far from it." As the old man spoke, he started to brag about himself. Of course, he had the capital to brag. At least, Yu Yang, who was never convinced by others, didn't object. If it was another person, a certain third young master would have already killed, dragged, and buried him long ago. Why would he still discuss fishing techniques and camouflage? Then how can we flatten this radiant mountain? Yu Yang was like a primary school student who loved to learn, asking humbly. "It's very simple. If you have the same strength as me, that's more or less enough." The old man's tone was very arrogant. "What if you don't?" Yu Yang rolled his eyes when he heard this. "Damn you! You've lived for tens of thousands of years. Who wants to compete with you? If you have the guts, compete with this young master to see who's younger." The old man stood on his tiptoes, stretched out his arm, and patted Yu Yang's shoulder with great effort. With a look of a senior, he said sincerely, "Don't be afraid, I like you a lot, so I'll give you some guidance. If you can comprehend 20 to 30% of it, you might be able to escape unscathed. Although you won't be able to improve much, you'll be able to protect yourself." Yu Yang really wanted to take off his shoes and flatten this arrogant old man into a paperman, but he used all his strength to resist. "If not for the fact that you're a senior, no, if not for the fact that you're an idiot, I would have used my innate sword chi to dismember you long ago." "Old man, can you not be so arrogant? Isn't it just living for tens of thousands of years? If you have the ability, increase your intelligence a little." If it was someone else, this old man definitely wouldn't say anything. "Although you don't look that good, your comprehension is still all right." This old man will reluctantly make an exception and give you some guidance. "I'll teach you other things for now, and when your cultivation is up to par, I'll teach you some profound fishing techniques." The old man's words almost made Yu Yang fall to the ground. He had been criticized many times in his life, but no one had ever said that he didn't look good. "Please, Senior, what era's aesthetic standards are these?" "The divine supreme realm. This kid has always been confused. I hope Senior can guide me." Yu Yang bowed to the old man, which was a rare sight. When asking for guidance, Yu Yang's attitude was still relatively proper. "It's still too early to talk about the divine supreme realm, you're still far from it. That's something even more profound than fishing technique. Kid, don't be too greedy, be careful that you choke." This old man will reluctantly give you some pointers on the divine supreme realm today. When the old man said this, Yu Yang was stunned. Divine supreme realm? What the hell is this? Although he didn't know much about the divine supreme realm, it wasn't little either. Why had he never heard anything about the divine supreme realm? Even his mother's inheritance of wisdom hadn't mentioned it. What exactly was this divine supreme realm? Chapter 1338. The old man jumped up onto a small step. He looked down from above. As if he was giving pointers, he explained this mysterious divine throne to Yu Yang. Are you sure no one taught you before? You don't even know such a simple thing, it's too pitiful. A child with no one to teach and take care of you, you're just like weeds in a wasteland. This can't go on. If you don't even know this, you'll become a laughing stock. The old man shook his head and sighed. Yu Yang's anger was accumulating like a volcano. Fuck, who was the one who caused this? Isn't it all because of you old ghosts, all of you hiding away and not seeing anyone, causing the younger generation to be locked up or hung up? Just the slightest bit of exposure would cause them to encounter danger. Sky-split tower, up and down, big and small, all of you are like wild children without parents. Anyone can bully you, anyone can kill their way to your door and kick you. Whose responsibility is this? It's all because of you ignorant seniors. If all the old ghosts in Tong Tian Tower were here, Prison Emperor wouldn't have died. Queen Vivian Li wouldn't have been locked up. It was him. He wouldn't have been forced to the point where he didn't even know what the divine throne was and could only be a laughingstock. The more Yu Yang thought about it, the angrier he got. He really wanted to turn hostile and punch this bullshit senior into the sky, then fight with Tianyu to the death. No one told you, it's normal that you don't know. Because if you don't meet the requirements, most people won't tell you. This is the secret of the heavens, the secret of the secret. Also, you're a little special, your speed is very fast. It doesn't make sense. When we weren't paying attention, you appeared. Maybe your master didn't even have time to tell you. The old man saw that the little guy was angry and quickly comforted him. The secret of the secret? When Yu Yang heard this, his anger subsided a little. If it's something too simple, then there's no need for this old man to enlighten you. Your master will teach you. The old man stroked his white beard proudly. Hey, I don't have a master, I'm self-taught. It wasn't that Yu Yang didn't have any teachers, but he knew that this old man wasn't talking about Shui Donglu, Fei Wenli, or the other teachers who had taught him, but an old ghost who was hiding behind the scenes. Impossible. The old man shook his head vigorously. He absolutely did not believe that there were people in this world who could become successful through self-study. Forget it if you don't believe me. A thought flashed through Yu Yang's mind. Could this old man be talking about the old Taoist who kicked his butt? No, if the old Taoist priest was protecting him from behind, then why would the heavenly sword goddess exist? Moreover, this old man came from the Tong Tian Tower, and the old Taoist should be from the Eastern Immortal tribe. There was no relationship between them at all. Yu Yang's expression did not change, but his mind was racing like lightning. He guessed that the master that this old man was talking about was a Tong Tian Tower ranker, who was also hidden in the depths of the heaven realm like him, a person from the same generation as him. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so sure that he had a master to teach him. At the same time, he wouldn't be surprised that he didn't know the secrets of the divine throne. The old man was skeptical at first, but seeing that Yu Yang didn't look like he was joking, and even denied his master, he felt that no matter how mischievous this kid was, he wouldn't be like this. He couldn't help but be dumbfounded. You really don't have a master? You really trained yourself to become a talent? How is this possible? Yu Yang brushed his hair in a carefree manner. Please don't be too surprised. You have to know that you are talking to a peerless genius that only appears once in 10,000 years. After being stunned for a while, the old man suddenly jumped down excitedly and grabbed Yu Yang's arm. Kid, I think highly of you. Why don't I be your master? As long as I teach you a few tricks, I guarantee that you will benefit from it for the rest of your life. Although I don't pay much attention to the ceremony, I still have the ceremony of 3 kneeling and 9 kowtows. Kid, if you sincerely become my disciple, this old man will not only teach you the divine throne and other heavenly secrets, but I will also teach you the ultimate fishing technique. I guarantee that you can also become an expert in fishing. He didn't mention fishing, but the moment he mentioned Yu Yang, he got angry. Fishing your sister? What I want to catch the most is not fish, but girls. If you want to teach me fishing techniques, I will call you master. What bullshit fishing, who the hell wants it? I'm sorry, I only want beauties to be my master. Although Senior is handsome and outstanding, you are not a beauty, so I'm sorry. Yu Yang rejected without hesitation. It was fine if he didn't have a master. Anyway, he had the heavenly sword goddess to protect him. If he really couldn't do it, he could find the old Taoist priest who kicked him. That old Taoist priest was probably more powerful. Even if he wanted to become his disciple, there was no reason for him to find an idiot. I am so handsome, yet you don't want to worship me? What a pity. The old man was originally very unhappy. It was rare for him to want to take him as a disciple, but this brat actually didn't know what was good for him and rejected him. Fortunately, he still had a good eye and knew that he was handsome. Senior, you are a person of virtue and prestige, and are reasonable. You should support my ideals, right? Yu Yang's moral integrity and whatnot fell to the ground with a bang. Of course, of course. The old man beamed with joy as he listened. An erudite and knowledgeable senior, you must know the secret of the divine throne that mortals don't know about. A certain third young master hypnotized himself to possess Fatty High. The divine throne is a secret that cannot be revealed to normal people, but to me it is too simple. The old man's bones seemed to have lightened by a few tales. If I, a junior, can listen to Senior's earnest teachings, even if I can't respectfully call you master because of my ideals, I believe that deep in my heart, I can't help but respect Senior's noble demeanor. A certain third young master sighed sadly, as if he was secretly regretting his vow to only worship beauties as his master. It's about ideals. I understand that children have unreliable ideals. After all, you are still young. The old man's heart softened. Senior, you are too great. A certain third young master was moved and gave a thumbs up. Ha ha. The old man laughed proudly. Other than admiration, I can't find another word to describe my current feelings. A certain third young master's bootlicking did not pay with his life. Not to mention an idiotic old man, even a rational great sage might not be able to withstand such a sugar-coated bullet. Good, good, the more I look at you, the more I like you. Today, I am in a good mood, so I will tell you about the divine throne. The old man was so happy that he didn't know which way was north. When Yu Yang heard that it was a secret, he hurriedly listened attentively. Bootlicking was one thing, but the old man still had real skills. If it wasn't for his idiotic personality, the deity Shrine Supreme Tian Yu who sat at the top of the Radiant Light Mountain might not be able to survive. Yu Yang now suspected why Tian Yu would train so crazily. Perhaps it was because of this old man's stimulation. There was a strong opponent hovering right under his nose every day. Even if he was an idiot, it was still frightening. The old man cleared his throat and stroked his beard. He walked 2 rounds in front of Yu Yang, making sure that this brat was 100% focused, before he began to explain. Divine throne is a deity position. Deity position? Yu Yang was confused. Why did it sound so familiar? Calling it deity position doesn't sound good. Those above are usually called divine throne. The old man made a gesture with his hand. Divine throne is actually the definition of a deity's level. In other words, only those who have divine throne can be considered a true deity. Those who don't, sorry, those above won't recognize them. I don't understand at all. Yu Yang was even more confused. What a pitiful brat. You don't even know anything about the things above. The old man said in a tone that was asking for a beating. pitying Yu Yang for 3 seconds. This action almost made Yu Yang smash his head on a piece of tofu. Damn it, who knows about the things above the deities? I came from Tong Tian Tower, that countryside place. Aren't deities divided into true gods and false gods? Yu Yang realized that all the historical records wrote this way. There was no such thing as divine throne. False gods are also considered deities? The old man was amused. True gods are not considered deities. Only those who have the qualifications to become divine thrones are called true gods by the outside world. These are all myths from the lower realm. More accurately, only deities who have their own unique divine throne will be recognized by the higher-up. Without recognition from the higher-ups, without any records from the higher-ups, people will know where you came from. No one recognizes you, and you don't have a master. So even if you get bullied miserably here, no one will care. No wonder the demons with backgrounds in Journey to the West were all taken away. Yu Yang suddenly realized, damn it, the truth was enough to make people cry in their hearts. People without any background or backing could only be described with one word, miserable. Yu Yang thought that he could not go on like this. He had to change quickly. Thus, he asked anxiously, then, how can I obtain a divine throne? He began to wonder if he should pay some protection fees, give some treasures, or get a certificate of allegiance, register an ID card, or join some society or organization. Who knew that the old man would make him feel disappointed when he opened his mouth? The old man shook his head and waved his hands. Divine throne is not something you can obtain just because you want to. You have to fulfill 3 conditions. First, you have to have enough cultivation. Without this, no one will be able to use it. Second, you have to have a master who can help you become a divine throne. You can't do it yourself. Even if you have the ability to learn by yourself, you won't be able to become a divine throne without 100 or 80,000 years, even if it's the lowest level divine throne. Third, this is the simplest but also the hardest. You have to make a very important decision. That is to use all your current divine power, talent, laws, and so on to become a divine throne. In other words, after you become a divine throne, you will be defined. What level you are, what position you will be in, those are almost fixed, and there will not be much possibility of change. Do you still not understand? In other words, your cultivation is almost over. This divine throne is the end point. After becoming a divine throne, I can't cultivate anymore? Yu Yang was shocked. Yes, but in theory, many active people can still continue to cultivate, but it will be very slow, especially those who have exhausted their potential and don't have a lot of power of faith to convert. In that case, I estimate that even if they cultivate for 10,000 or 1,000 years, they won't grow much. The old man expressed his affirmation. I can't cultivate any more in the future, then why should I become a divine throne? Or maybe I can wait until I reach the end of my cultivation, then it won't be too late. When Yu Yang heard that he couldn't cultivate anymore, he couldn't help but feel a little conflicted. The divine throne is not something you can get just because you want it. Do you think it's cabbages? The old man was overjoyed. He never thought that Yu Yang actually didn't want it now. If I can do it now, why can't I do it in the future? Yu Yang was even more puzzled. You can do it now because you have just started cultivating and are like a blank piece of paper. It will be easier for your master to help you become a divine throne. In the future, when all aspects of you are fixed and the good and bad are mixed together, you might not be able to achieve it. Even if you can, it might not be as good as now. Also, after you reach the divine level, your power will be revealed. You might inadvertently cause earth-shattering changes in some places. It's hard to judge whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. If you do something wrong, the will and laws of the ancient gods will punish you. So, it will be even harder to become a divine throne. Yu Yang finally understood the old man's words. This divine throne was the definition of a divine level. It was an achievement at the end of one's cultivation. It was a way for the gods to verify and display their power. Without it, then, those old fellows in the heaven realm would not admit it. Moreover, this divine throne was very difficult to obtain. It wasn't something that could be easily obtained. It was impossible without someone on it. Yu Yang secretly complained in his heart. There was no one behind him. God knows where that old Taoist priest went. Fortunately, there was still the heavenly sword goddess. Otherwise, he would be in trouble. What kind of divine throne do you think I can achieve now? Yu Yang asked a little tentatively. If he couldn't even achieve the lowest level of divine throne, then forget it. He would train for another 10,000 or 1,000 years before thinking about it. I don't know. It is determined according to the various aspects that you possess. For example, your grimoire, divine power and divinity, innate skill and laws. When many things are mixed together, the more outstanding you are, the higher your position will be, and the more glorious your divine throne will be. Oh right, in the whole process of your cultivation, the more things you have done, the more you have to pay back. No matter if it's good or bad, you have to pay them all back. Only then can you achieve your divine throne. The old man talked nonstop as he introduced. I have to pay back for doing good deeds? Yu Yang was shocked. Of course, if you do good deeds, you will also change other people's fate. Then, you will have to take responsibility until the end. Unless you can control the other party's fate, or make their fate merge with yours, making them live in your world, otherwise, even if you don't do anything, no one will help you clean up the mess. It doesn't matter if you are a normal person, but you are a god, you can't go back on your word. Moreover, this is not without benefit. They have become your subordinates, and with their worship, they can also give you some power of faith in return, increasing the glory of your divine throne. In the future, a large part of your cultivation will depend on them. That's why, without this, you can't do it. The old man's explanation made Yu Yang speechless. Fortunately, he was not a meddlesome person, or else he would have a headache. No wonder these old ghosts did not come out and did not do anything. It turned out that it was not because they did not want to take care of their descendants, but because they were afraid that they would get into trouble and become a full-time nanny. Yu Yang thought for a while. It was better to go back and ask the heavenly sword goddess. Moreover, it was still too early to think about this. When he completely understood the holy supreme realm, he did not believe that he could not become a glorious divine throne. With another thought, Yu Yang secretly suspected that all the things the heavenly sword goddess had done to him might be the prelude to becoming a divine throne. Otherwise, she would not have interfered with his cultivation so many times. Furthermore, at the most critical moment, she was the one who secretly helped him. Thinking of this, Yu Yang's heart became clear. Sigh, the world was so big, he did not need to care about anything else. He only needed to follow her arrangements and cultivate. He had her for everything. As for the divine throne, there was definitely no lack of it. Chapter 1339. Yu Yang was much calmer now. The heavy feeling he had when he first heard of the god throne was washed away. His mood was like seeing the sun again. The blue sky reappeared. The old man originally wanted to brag to Yu Yang for a while, but he frowned and stretched out his arm to pat Yu Yang's shoulder. Brat, let's stop here for now. When I'm free, I'll talk to you again. There's a madman here. He's very suspicious. Although he didn't find me, he's been looking for me all these years. I can't let him find me, ha ha. Yu Yang was speechless. Senior, are you here to play hide and seek? If you had the strength, you could just slap him to death like how you would slap a fly, right? Why are you playing such a boring game? You're tens of thousands of years old, not a few years old, okay? If he asks you, don't ever say that you've seen me. The old man even reminded Yu Yang not to reveal anything. I say, Senior, why are you running? Just beat him up until he's like a fallen flowers looking for his teeth on the ground. Even his grandmother wouldn't be able to recognize him. Yu Yang couldn't understand this idiot's world at all. Not only was he strong, but he was also a senior expert. Why didn't he show a little bit of the demeanor of a senior expert? He was completely stupid. What was going on? No, I don't want to fight with a brat who's only lived for 20 to 30,000 years. If I beat him to tears, he'll go back and tell the adults that I bullied a kid. Then my old face will be gone. No, I can't do something that's beneath my dignity. The old man waved his hands. Just when Yu Yang couldn't help but want to smash his skull and replace it with a piece of tofu. The old man disappeared in an instant. He disappeared without a trace, as if he had never appeared. Even someone as strong as Yu Yang's Heaven Eye's divine vision couldn't see through it at all. If it wasn't for the fact that he had just heard about the Divine Throne's secret, Yu Yang would have really suspected that this stupid senior had never appeared before, and was just an illusion that the enemy had given him. Why did Tong Tian Tower have so many seniors like this? Is it normal for there not to be an old ghost? It was no wonder that Skysplit Tower had sunk into oblivion. Damn it, these idiots were their seniors. If Skysplit Tower hadn't sunk into oblivion, then there would be no justice in the world. Don't let me see you again, or I'll beat you up every time I see you. Yu Yang felt indignant in his heart. With so many powerful seniors around, the juniors of Tong Tian Tower were still like wild children who had no parents, and could be bullied by anyone. This really made him speechless. What was the use of having these kinds of seniors? I might as well not have it at all. If Her Majesty Queen Vivian Li didn't mention it, Prison Emperor Zhan Feng's death would only be an injustice. But then again, according to this old fellow's words, it could be seen that although the deity's Templar's Supreme Tian Yu was a brat, who had lived for 20 to 30,000 years, there was an adult behind him. It seemed that the old fogies still had some concerns about not making a move. Perhaps there was some kind of agreement between the higher-ups, and the adults were not in a position to interfere with the matters of the lower ranks. Instead, they let the little brats fight however they wanted. However, how old was this young master? The deity's Templar's Supreme Tian Yu, a brat who had lived for 20 to 30,000 years, wanted to fight with him. Wouldn't he be embarrassed? Wouldn't he be bullying others? 20 to 30,000 years old, and he was still a brat? Damn it, this old man's eyes were really blind. Since the adults above didn't care, and allowed the people below to fight as they please, then things would be easy to handle. Yu Yang decided to wreak havoc in this radiant mountain. If he didn't kill his way in and out of this damned central shrine, he wouldn't be called the Yu clan's third young master. Sorry for the long wait, guest from Tong Tian Tower. The legendary genius Titan Yu that only appears once in 10,000 years, please allow me, the left imperial messenger of the central shrine, to welcome you on behalf of the Supreme Lord. A tall and incomparably handsome middle-aged man was standing behind Yu Yang at some point in time. He was gracefully bowing to Yu Yang. From his face, one could see the accumulated maturity of the vicissitudes of life, but not a single trace of aging could be seen. On the contrary, this person's eyes had a special kind of light. Perfectly mixed with worldly experience, it formed a very wonderful charm. If an ignorant young girl saw this, her heart would definitely be aroused. She would be hopelessly infatuated with this middle-aged uncle whose appearance was shockingly lethal, as if she had been poisoned. Compared to Yu Yang's youthful handsomeness, youthful valiance, and exuberant vitality, this middle-aged uncle had a similar but completely different charm. He was mature, steady, and as steady as a mountain. Anyone who saw him would feel that he was extremely reliable. Even if the sky collapsed, he would be able to shoulder it with his shoulders. You are the left imperial messenger? Yu Yang had never heard of the left imperial messenger before, but with his Heaven Eye's divine vision, he understood that this left imperial messenger was not a human at all. He was the deity's Templar's supreme Tian Yu's guardian spirit beast that had already transformed into a perfect human and reached god level. No wonder he dared to represent Tian Yu to welcome him. Yu Yang looked him up and down, trying his best to find some faults with this middle-aged uncle. But unfortunately, he couldn't find anything in such a short amount of time. Furthermore, he couldn't criticize him against his will, so he could only change the topic. As the host, you didn't personally welcome your guests, and even deliberately gave them the cold shoulder, making them wait in vain. If such neglect were to spread out, I'm afraid you would become a laughing stock. The middle-aged uncle, who was the left imperial messenger, was not angry when he heard this. He only smiled slightly. There are many kinds of guests. There is one kind that comes uninvited. Whether the host personally welcomes them or not, I believe that they will not feel cold. Yu Yang clapped his hands. Well said. It just so happens that a group of shameless guests came to my house. The middle-aged uncle's face was full of regret as he spread his hands. I personally sympathize with your unfortunate experience. Maybe you can try my suggestion. Why don't you protest and denounce them? Yu Yang laughed when he heard this. He couldn't stop laughing. I haven't learned how to protest and denounce. Uncle, why don't you demonstrate it yourself? The middle-aged uncle waved his hands lightly. Protest and denounce are always the rights of the weak. I'm not good at it either. If you want to see how the central shrine expel its guests, then I don't mind demonstrating it. Young man, although we are on opposing sides, I personally have a very sincere advice here. The Bright Mountain and the Central Shrine are not places that a young man like you can challenge yet. If I were you, I would go back and train hard for thousands of years. When that time comes, I believe that the result would be completely different. I'm not you. I'm me. Yu Yang didn't deny the other party's advice. He knew that what the other party said was not exaggerated or boastful. It was just the truth. However, as the Yu clan's third young master, he always had his own pride and persistence. Here, let me say something very impolitely. Yu clan's third young master, you can't even defeat me right now. How can you challenge my master? The middle-aged uncle shook his head. I can fight even if I can't win. I never thought of winning. Yu Yang's smile was as bright as the summer sun. You still want to fight even if you know you're going to lose? The middle-aged uncle frowned. No, I've never failed. Yu Yang was full of confidence. Are you sure? The middle-aged uncle was extremely shocked by Yu Yang's confidence at this moment. What kind of confidence did he have that allowed him to stand under the Bright Mountain, stand in front of the central shrine, stand on the opposite side of the supreme heavenly chariot, and say that he had never been defeated in his life? Regarding this Yu clan third young master, every higher-up in the central divine palace had incomparably detailed information on him. Other than a few trump cards that no one could guess, Dong Feng and the other higher-ups knew everything about him. However, thinking back, this was really the case. The battles that this young man had participated in before, no matter if it was witnessed by someone or if it was a secret that no one knew about, his battle results were incomparably glorious. It seemed that he really had never failed, not even once. All the enemies who thought that they could defeat me, they all failed. Yu Yang recalled the various enemies he had faced in various stages of his life. Whether it was his initial enemy Marquis of Zijin, or Void and Jiu Shao he met in the Prison Emperor Divine Palace, or the Scarlet Emperor in the middle, Ancient Demon King and Kai Tian Demon Elder in the late, or even the Nine Lights Heaven Empress who invaded with her entire clan and the Sun King who was full of confidence and thirst for the divine grimoire, they all failed. Only he persevered until the end and laughed until the end. It was precisely because there were so many strong enemies along the way. There were so many bitter battles that caused him to become stronger and braver as he met strong enemies. If it was possible, Yu Yang really wanted to say thank you to those enemies who had fought fiercely with him before. Thank you for having you along the way. Today's Yu Yang, the Yu clan's third young master, who said that he would flatten the bright mountain and challenge the supreme heavenly chariot of the temple. The middle-aged uncle saw that Yu Yang's aura had changed. The combination of self-confidence and divine power gradually showed signs of forming a unique divinity. He took a step forward and sincerely raised his hand, saluting Yu Yang. "Young man, you are indeed an outstanding young man. Other than my master, I have never seen a second genius like you. Maybe your future path will be very long and your future is limitless. However, let me use facts to tell you a truth. There are no gods below the God throne in this world, and there are no opponents below the God throne." When he straightened his back, the middle-aged uncle's face shone with a solemn and holy radiance. "Young man, since you have never been defeated in your life, then today I, the left imperial messenger under my master, Zizai Tian, will grant you a defeat." Zizai Tian? Yu Yang felt that this name sounded familiar. However, he immediately realized that the Zizai Tian in front of him was completely different from the Zizai Tian that he had heard of before. Furthermore, the Zizai Tian that he had heard of before was also very confusing due to various explanations. No one knew the truth, and Yu Yang was not an expert in that field, so he did not have the heart to investigate. When he first heard the middle-aged uncle's name, Zizai Tian, Yu Yang was still shocked. After all, in the heaven realm, there were many strong warriors. This kind of awesome name was not something that a dog or cat could casually call out. The deity Templar's Tian Yu actually dared to give his guardian beast such a name. This proved that this middle-aged uncle really had some ability. The name Zizai Tian and his strength made Yu Yang's expression change. However, when he said he would grant him a defeat, Yu Yang's ears automatically chose to ignore it. Almost all the strong enemies had said the same thing. It was a pity that the only person who could make the guy from another world fail and unable to take revenge was the old Taoist priest who had kicked him in the butt. "Come, grant me a defeat, just like the Sun King who told me this many years ago." Before Yu Yang could finish speaking, he was shocked to find that the whole world had already been annihilated by a terrifying holy light. Chapter 1340. The light dissipated. The receiving platform was nowhere to be seen, leaving only a world of nothingness. In this world of nothingness where there wasn't even any light, life and matter were all annihilated. Other than Mahasvara, who was standing in the center, nothing else existed. After an unknown amount of time, from the netherworld, a dreamlike thought came. "Mahasvara, has he already been annihilated by your holy light?" The middle-aged Uncle Mahasvara was thinking silently. He didn't reply. Another thought came down from the sky dome. Is this the true strength of a peerless genius that only appears once in 10,000 years? Too weak. However, this result isn't strange. He is still too young. Originally, I was looking forward to seeing him fight against eternal hatred, but who would have thought that he couldn't even withstand a single move from Mahasvara? This is too depressing. In Tong Tian Tower, Titan Yu is already the most outstanding one, but he is so disappointing. Titan Yu, even though his body was annihilated by the holy light, I have a feeling that he isn't an opponent that can be defeated so easily. Perhaps it's just my misconception. The dreamlike thought sighed slightly. Haha, Mahasvara, you are always so pessimistic. You are still so worried about a person who has already been annihilated. Really, please don't forget why our Lord gave you the name Mahasvara. He hoped that you would be more optimistic, open your mind, and enjoy the pleasures of life. You are already a god with a throne, so don't be as depressed as before. Only a weak and powerless woman would be like that. Happy Sky, no matter what, you're now a deity on par with the two of us. Think of some happy things once in a while and enjoy your endless life. The will descending from the top of the vault of heaven exhorted its companion with a hint of dissatisfaction. I just had a sudden thought. I hope that it was just a misconception. The dreamlike thought that was called Mahasvara by his companions still hadn't completely relaxed. No, it wasn't a misconception. The middle-aged Uncle Mahasvara finally spoke. What? The dreamlike thought and the other sky dome were shocked when they heard this. After unrestrained heaven spoke, his voice couldn't be transmitted, but his will was like a flash of light, piercing through the entire void. Titan Yu isn't dead, this is for sure. He isn't an opponent that can be killed in one move. Not to mention us, even if my master came, he wouldn't be able to do it. The will of the sky was very puzzled. I clearly saw him being annihilated by your holy light. There's no mistake about it. The middle-aged Uncle Zizai nodded. My holy light had indeed annihilated my opponent, but that wasn't Titan Yu. That should be a shadow created by his will. It wasn't even a beast. The will of the dream realm, joyous sky, also expressed his agreement. Now I understand. Eternal hatred dragged Titan Yu into the piercing hell. Why was he able to escape the ancient god's imprisonment laws? Because of this, enduring hatred didn't pull in his true body, but Titan Yu's shadow. Just like how carefree heaven tried to pull him into this world of nothingness, he didn't succeed. My worries aren't wrong. I'm afraid that the real Titan Yu has already started a battle with my lord. Heavenly freedom fell into silence. With regards to Titan Yu's reaction, including his crazy counterattack, he was mentally prepared. However, now, he had slipped out of his sight without anyone noticing, leaving behind a shadow that was so real that it was hard to distinguish the real from the fake. Using this to confuse him, he even made him believe that it was real and launched an erroneous attack. Such an ending was something he had never thought of. Could it be that this young man, the Yu clan's third young master, was a peerless genius that only appeared once in 10,000 years in Tongtian Tower? He was even more outstanding than Conquest Queen Fei Wenli and Prison Emperor Zhan Feng. The will of the sky was silent for a while. Suddenly, he burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, joyous sky and carefree sky, you don't have to worry at all. My lord doesn't only have the three of us. Although those fellows haven't obtained the divine throne like us, from a certain point of view, their battle power isn't inferior to ours. They might even be stronger than us. We still have to be careful when we attack, but they don't have this obstacle at all. If they were to encounter Titan Yu, they might tear him into pieces and swallow him whole in less than 10 minutes. I hope that's the case. Heavenly Freedom nodded again. Dongfang is right. He is indeed not an opponent to be underestimated. Only now do I fully understand the meaning behind Dongfang's words. The more interesting the opponent, the more fun it is, isn't it? The will of the sky was not dejected at all. On the contrary, his morale was rising. Indeed, in our long lives and endless years, we really need such an opponent to spice up our life. It's really boring to live a peaceful life for too long. Now, I'm suddenly looking forward to the battle between Radiance Mountain and Skirich Tower. Unrestrained's eyes flashed with a resplendent radiance. His battle intent erupted from his body, multiplying by 1,000,000 times. Can I attack as well? Titan Yu is yours. I heard from Dongfang that Titan Yu has an incredibly intelligent fiancée who has been scheming for him from behind the scenes. She's always been like his left and right arms. I really want to see just what kind of girl she is. The will of the dream realm was also interested. How many years has it been since we last attacked together? How nostalgic. The will of the sky was extremely excited. However, the Yu Yang they were talking about was not at the escort platform. He was not even at Radiance Mountain. A few shadows of different heights searched the surroundings, but they couldn't find any trace of Yu Yang at all. He was like smoke, disappearing without a trace. If it wasn't for the will of Mahasvara, coming from the void world, telling them that the Yu clan's third young master had successfully escaped, the few shadows that were bitterly searching for him would have suspected that Titan Yu had already been killed by Mahasvara in the void world where one could not escape once they entered. How could such an impossible thing happen? Was the Yu clan's third young master really that hard to kill? Where did he go? Skirich Tower, Heaven's Stairway, Level 10. Shattered space. Emperor Wu Shuang used his supreme divine power to open an extremely secretive space passage. He entered alone. His 10,000-meter-tall golden body moved forward alone in the black hole-like space passage. It was as if he had been doing this for thousands of years and had never had a companion. He did not know how far he had traveled or how much time and space he had traversed. Finally, his footsteps slowly came to a halt. In front of him, there was a giant door that might have existed since ancient times. It was 300,000 meters tall and 200,000 meters wide. In front of this giant door that only gods could pass through, even Emperor Wu Shuang, who had a 10,000-meter-tall body, became incomparably small. At this moment, a solemn and respectful expression appeared on Emperor Wu Shuang's face. He very sincerely bowed to the giant door to pay his respects. Inside the giant door, there seemed to be a faintly discernible Will sighing slightly, but it also seemed as if nothing had happened. Ancient great God above, the peerless descendant of Skirich Tower, has come to keep the appointment. Great God, please be merciful and open the divine door. Emperor Wu Shuang bowed deeply. The immemorial runes on the unbelievably huge divine door drove the ancient rune circle. Divine light shone brightly and illuminated the entire space passage. The divine light drowned the entire world like the sea. At the place where the light was the most intense, the door slid open silently. Just a sliver was enough for Emperor Wu Shuang to enter. Emperor Wu Shuang paid his respects sincerely. Only then did he take a big step. Step by step, he walked in like a heavy mountain. Outside the giant door was an ancient passage that was like a black hole vortex that could swallow everything at any time. Inside the giant door was an extremely clean and beautiful world of light. In this world there was nothing bad at all. Everything was beautiful. Even the air here was 100 times fresher and smelled better than the air in the heaven realm. This was a sea of flowers. Countless exotic flowers and plants that were rare even in the heaven realm grew everywhere here. There were no evil beasts, only spiritual birds and rare animals. They played and chased each other here, happy and carefree. Emperor Wu Shuang did not stop. He continued to move forward step by step. His goal was the distant mountain. It was a divine mountain that was at least 1,000,000 meters high. Its height far exceeded the clouds in the sky, piercing straight into the sky. Following Emperor Wu Shuang's footsteps, a drizzle suddenly fell from the sky. There was a voice full of joy and a crying voice that came from the top of the white clouds. "Peerless, you shouldn't have come. You should understand that some things can't be forced. You really shouldn't have come. I know everything and I understand everything." Emperor Wu Shuang suddenly smiled and stretched out his hand to catch the drizzle. "Then why did you still come?" The voice seemed to be complaining, but it was more of joy. "I was bored in the Black Tower, so I came to find a friend to talk to. That's all." Emperor Wu Shuang's voice became very soft like the wind. The sun and moon that were originally emitting blazing light in his eyes were reduced to shining stars because of his smile. "Don't lie. You're covered in blood. You must have been in a fierce battle. How could you be bored like this? I don't need you here, and it doesn't matter. You also know that I've long been used to it over the years. But outside, without you, I don't know how chaotic it is. Go back, Peerless, you didn't want to come here. You should stay in the Black Tower, not come here to chat with me." The voice transmitted from the top of the cloud also became extremely soft, and gradually turned into a light breeze, blowing over Emperor Wu Shuang's body, blowing away the wounds and blood on his body. "It's fine even without me outside. After being locked in the Black Tower for all these years, the heaven-reaching tower is still the same as before. There's no problem at all. But you only have me as a friend. If I don't come, who will accompany you, even if it's just for a while?" Emperor Wu Shuang slowly raised his head to the sky. His eyes were like the moon, as if he wanted to penetrate the layers of clouds and look directly at the person on top of the cloud. What a fool! I've already become like this, and I've long been used to it. Please don't look at me with the silly temperament of a child. The voice on top of the cloud laughed upon hearing this. The laughter was extremely soft and gentle, even softer than the beautiful rainbow that had just been born in the mountains. I'm still the same me, you know. Emperor Wu Shuang also laughed, but there was an inexplicable bitterness in his smile. Don't worry, no matter how long I sleep, I won't forget you. The voice on top of the cloud didn't want to talk about this topic anymore, so he changed his tone and asked, "Is it really okay outside?" The dignified Emperor Wu Shuang was actually beaten up so badly. It's really a bit unreasonable. How, don't you want to explain what's going on? It's just a misunderstanding. Emperor Wu Shuang casually spread out his hands. Actually, there was an impulsive bull who suddenly came to my door and fought with me for no reason. I hope the truth is as simple as you say. The voice on top of the cloud suddenly sighed. I won't lie to you. You know that it's the truth. Emperor Wu Shuang didn't want to hide it. He treated the person on top of the cloud with complete sincerity. Otherwise, he could completely remove all the wounds and blood on his body before entering the divine gate to meet him. Of course, he didn't want to mention the outside world too much. He didn't want that person to be distracted by the outside world. Yes, you won't lie to me. But I believe that the process won't be as simple as you say. The voice on top of the cloud suddenly raised a notch. Why don't I ask this little girl who followed behind you and sneaked in? I've seen many young and outstanding children, but I've never seen someone like you who can hide from the eyes and ears of the peerless, follow behind him, and sneak into the divine gate. Hello, little girl, what's your name? Why are you following behind the peerless? Could it be that all his injuries were caused by you? You're too young. In the past 10,000 years, didn't Tong Tian Tower only produce prison Emperor Zhanfeng? How can there be such an outstanding person like you? Emperor Wu Shuang turned around when he heard this, and found a sparkling, star-like shadow, quietly floating above the sea of flowers, breath, one with nature, as if she had been living here for billions of years in harmony. Chapter 1341. Who are you? Ji Zun looked up at the sky, her eyes passing through the layers of clouds and looking at the person at the top of the mountain. I have almost forgotten who I am. I have been sleeping here for too long. Little girl, on your body, there is a very familiar smell that makes me feel very close and familiar. Perhaps you and I are the same, we both come from the same place. Is the current heaven stairway still as vibrant, blooming with flowers, singing birds and fragrant flowers as before? How nostalgic. I remember back in the day, I loved to chase and play with my younger sisters in the bushes of flowers. At that time, even the gentle breeze blowing from the sky was filled with laughter. The voice on top of the white cloud was incomparably sentimental. I don't know what the heaven stairway used to be like, but the current heaven stairway, as early as I remember, has become a barren world. The sky is broken, the earth is cracked, the lake is dried up, everything is gone. Ji Zun shook her head. Although she couldn't bear to tell the other party this result, the truth was the truth. Is that so? The most beautiful heaven stairway was also destroyed by the flames of war? The voice of the top of the cloud was sad, and after a long time, he sighed. Didn't Peerless Senior tell you that Tong Tian Tower has long fallen and is no longer the same as it was in the past? Ji Zun looked at Emperor Wu Shuang strangely. Emperor Wu Shuang's face was expressionless. He neither admitted nor denied it. He came here mainly to accompany me. Most of the time, I was talking and he was listening. The voice of the top of the cloud was especially gentle when it came to Peerless Senior. What is this place? Ji Zun was very curious. Why didn't she know about the existence of this gate of God and the world behind it? Even if she didn't know, then why didn't she mention the Majesty, who had been sleeping in a mirage at the entrance of the temple ruins? Could it be that this place has become a secret realm that has been lost for thousands of years? This is the balanced world. Emperor Wu Shuang did not look back. His eyes were still looking at the divine mountain, but his mouth intentionally or unintentionally replied to Ji Zun. Balanced world? It was the first time Ji Zun had heard of this balanced world. In Tong Tian Tower, on the heaven stairway, there had never been any legends of the balanced world. What was going on? Could it be that here, this balanced world, was a corner of the temple ruins? Otherwise, how could the outside world know nothing about it? Emperor Wushuang was silent for a while, as if he was thinking about what to say. After a long time, he slowly said, "This place is actually a sealed place of God. I don't know when it started, but it might have existed since the ancient times. Right here, in this world of balance, in Tong Tian Tower and Heaven Realm, all the gods, who committed evil deeds would be sealed here by the ancient great gods, imprisoned within the gate of God, never to leave." Ji Zun was stunned when she heard this. The sealed place of God? If a god committed a crime, wouldn't there be nirvanic apotheosis? Why did they have to specially set up a divine gate to imprison him? Perhaps seeing that the supreme martial artist was confused, the voice on top of the white cloud explained with a smile, "Little girl, you might not know that there are actually two types of apotheosized gods. One is nirvana apotheosized gods, which is mainly targeted at those divine-level experts who have yet to comprehend the divine throne. However, once they comprehend the divine throne and possess their own laws and unique godheads, nirvana apotheosized gods won't be very useful anymore. Therefore, a special apotheosized place like the balance world has to be set up to confine those gods who have committed evil deeds but are unable to be completely sealed." When Ji Zun heard this, the difference between the two seals of Fei Wenli and Emperor Wushuang flashed in her mind. Fei Wenli, the conquest queen, was nirvanic apotheosis. Emperor Wushuang was sealed in the Black Tower. From this point of view, it was not that Emperor Wushuang's crimes were small or his ability was low. On the contrary, it was because Emperor Wushuang's ability was more powerful, so powerful that it could no longer be restricted by nirvanic apotheosis, and could only be imprisoned in the Black Tower. Even so, Emperor Wushuang often left the Black Tower, just like now, to come to the balanced world behind the Gate of God. However, this senior above the divine mountain did not seem to be a person who did many evil things. Why was he sealed in this balanced world? Was there a mistake? Or was there another reason? Thinking of this, Ji Zun could no longer hold back the curiosity in her heart. "Then, senior, why are you imprisoned in this world?" As if seeing through Ji Zun's thoughts, the voice on the top of the white clouds carried a hint of a smile. "I was indeed not sealed here. On the contrary, I voluntarily slept here. Because this is the balanced world. In the balanced world, not only are there the past powerhouses of Tong Tian Tower sealed, but also the Heaven Realm, and even the Heaven Realm and Radiance Mountain. Many powerhouses, after a long period of bitter practice, have cleansed themselves. The Gate of God is no longer a prison for them, so they are also free and leave one after another. However, there are still some stubborn villains here. They are not willing to examine themselves, and are even more unwilling to endure the bitter practice. On the contrary, they take the opportunity to gather together, and in this balanced world, continue to do evil, continue to wage war, and become more intense. They do it even more happily than outside." The voice on top of the white clouds laughed lightly. Many seniors of the Tong Tian Tower saw this situation. Some of the experts who could free themselves and leave voluntarily stayed behind. They turned into divine mountains and guarded this place. With their wills, they continued to balance this world that had originally lost its balance. Seniors are not willing to fight, and only wish to turn into divine mountain and sleep forever. And Heaven's Stairway has divine mountain protectors in every generation. When it was my turn, It was originally my younger sister, but because of some accident she unfortunately fell. As her elder sister, in order to fulfill her wish, I voluntarily came here. Heaven's stairway has divine mountain protectors in every generation? Jizun thought hard. This was not recorded in history at all. From this point of view, there must have been many unforeseen events in the middle, resulting in such an important inheritance not being continued. Perhaps this divine mountain protector senior, as early as tens of thousands of years ago, in the era of the peerless emperor, had already been alone, guarding this divine mountain. Later on, the heaven stairway, the inheritance was broken, and no one knew about this at all. This also resulted in no second divine mountain protector to take over her position, guarding here for tens of thousands of years. It must be very bitter. Perhaps it was even more bitter than cultivating alone on the heaven stairway. Jizun bowed to the divine mountain and the senior between the white clouds on the top of the divine mountain. You have worked hard, senior. As a junior, I have always been criticized for being arrogant and rude, and never show respect to my seniors. Here, I am willing to change my personal habits and sincerely pay my respect to you. It's not bitter, as a divine mountain protector, it is my honor. The voice on the top of the white clouds was very gentle, without the slightest resentment of guarding alone. As a divine mountain protector, must you turn into stone? Jizun had divine eyes that could see through heaven and earth. The layers of white clouds and the high sky, of course, could not block her vision. In her eyes there was an indescribably beautiful flower fairy. She wore a flower crown on her head and stood there with her eyes closed. She stood alone on the peak of the divine mountain. Everything below her slender waist had turned into stone, and her feet were firmly glued to the divine mountain. They were inseparable. No, the protection of the divine mountain does not have any restrictions. I became like this only because I am not good at fighting. After losing to the Radiance Mountain's evil god, I was cursed by them and turned into a divine mountain's stone. The flower fairy smiled, but her beautiful eyes still did not open. For tens of thousands of years has it always been like this? Jizun looked at the peerless emperor, then looked at the flower fairy on the top of the mountain, as if she understood something. Unless I can defeat them, otherwise the curse cannot be lifted. After all, it is a curse from God, and I lost the bet, so it is very reasonable for me to receive a little divine punishment. I have no resentment, nor am I dissatisfied. Although it is not convenient for me to move, it is okay. As a divine mountain protector, I do not need to move, and I also like peace. Besides, this is not a bad look. Turning into stone is better than turning into an ugly monster. I have long been used to it, little girl, you do not need to have any thoughts. The beautiful flower fairy waved her hand lightly, as if she did not want Jizun to see her like this and feel burdened. Are they still there? The evil deities? Jizun suddenly asked. Yes. The peerless emperor suddenly turned around and looked at Jizun. His eyes, like the sun and moon, shot out rays of light. Now, there are 3 people. Now, I need one person to go to the top of the divine mountain, stand by her side, and at the same time, hold up the sky of the balanced world, and activate the divine war law. If you can agree, then, no matter the outcome, I will do one thing for you, as long as it is within my power. The current Jizun of the Tong Tian Tower, I am not here as a senior, but as a man who is avenging his lover. Please promise me, give me a chance to start the divine war. No. Jizun refused. I have sworn, other than my younger brother, I will not promise a second man in the world, even if it is a request like yours to avenge your lover. The peerless emperor's face became bitter, and he clenched his fists. Even if he had a body of supreme divine power. Even if he was a god. So what? He could not even avenge his lover, or even bring her down from the divine mountain, and let her walk freely on the grass. It was impossible. He took a deep breath, and looked at Jizun again. I am not asking, I am willing to exchange the secret of the divine throne. For a God-level expert like you who cultivated to become a God-level expert, there should be no one to tell you the secret of the divine throne, and no one to help you evolve the divine throne. If you agree to help me hold up the sky, then I am willing to swear that I will do my best to help you create the biggest and most brilliant divine throne. Jizun was silent. Chapter 1342. Just when Emperor Wu Shuang thought that things had taken a turn for the better, Jizun shook her head unwaveringly. She, who had the eternal will of Jizun, could not be swayed by anything. Emperor Wu Shuang gritted his teeth and was about to make another offer to persuade Jizun, but Jizun waved her hand and said solemnly, "No matter what you say, I will not agree. Because I am me, and my will not be moved by any man. This is me. However, it is my own will that I am willing to help, not because of you, but to pay tribute to the seniors who have been guarding here for tens of thousands of years. As long as you support the sky at the top of the sacred mountain for me, then no matter what your will is, I am willing to help you achieve the divine throne." Emperor Wu Shuang was overjoyed when he heard this. He never thought that this cold and unshakable human Jizun would volunteer to help him. No need. Jizun refused Emperor Wu Shuang's kindness. "I will not accept a man to evolve the divine throne for me. Moreover, long before this, there was already someone who told me about the secret of the divine throne on the 1,000,000 steps of the world tree. Moreover, I have already begun to evolve my own divine throne according to the secret method left by that person." What? Emperor Wu Shuang was shocked. How was this possible? The divine throne could not evolve by itself. The evolution of the divine throne required various conditions. It was extremely complicated. That level of difficulty was not something that a self-taught genius of the younger generation could handle. How did this little girl, this human Jizun, do it? And who told her the secret of the divine throne and the secret method of evolution on the 1,000,000 steps of the world tree? Jizun did not look at Emperor Wu Shuang's expression. She slowly flew up, passed through the layers of clouds, and reached the top of the sacred mountain. She came before the 1,000-meter-tall flower fairy who had turned into a divine stone and was one with the sacred mountain. She bowed deeply to show her respect. "Although I can't promise to replace you as the next guardian of the sacred mountain, I can feel your protectiveness. Hold up the sky, I can't wait to drink the blood of those guys." Emperor Wu Shuang's fighting spirit erupted like the sun and wind, billions of times more powerful. "No, you are the one holding up the sky. The divine battle between Tong Tian Tower and Radiance Mountain is now the responsibility of our generation." Jizun had a different opinion. "Little girl, don't try to be brave. You should let that big idiot do it." The flower fairy hurriedly dissuaded her. The strength that Jizun was currently displaying, there was no way they could be compared to the evil deities who were on the opposite side of the sky of the Libra realm. Just as she had said, how could she, who had just evolved her divine throne, fight against a true god? Moreover, there were so many evil deities on the other side, and their evil nature was not something that a junior could contend against. Even if it was someone as strong as the peerless emperor, he would not have enough confidence to deal with the opponent's continuous attacks. Jizun shook her head gently. She held on to her will. When Emperor Wu Shuang and the flower fairy looked at her in surprise, the corners of Jizun's lips curved slightly, as if she was smiling. "I won't fall. Because I have promised my mother and aunt that I will become the strongest person in the world. Before that, no matter who, no matter what, cannot be an obstacle to me." After saying that, Jizun floated down the mountain. She turned into a ray of light and flew straight to the opposite side of the Libra realm. The peerless emperor arrived at the top of the mountain. First, he looked at the flower fairy who had turned into a god's stone gently. He stretched out his hand, as if he wanted to caress her soft hair, but then he slowly raised it up high and released his divine power, trying his best to hold up the sky at the top of the Libra realm. With his will, godhood, and the power of the laws, he once again broke the balance of the Libra realm and activated the divine war law for the umpteenth time. The petrified flower fairy's eyelashes trembled, and she opened her empty eyes. She looked up at the peerless emperor who was holding up the whole world above her head, and her voice was full of gentleness. She did it on purpose, that little girl, I know. The peerless emperor said lightly. She must have a special ability to see through your desire to die, so she rejected your request. Although her face is cold, this little girl's heart is not as cold as her appearance. The flower fairy's empty and blind eyes suddenly revealed a kind of gratitude. She stretched out her slender arms, first raising them high above her head, then elegantly folded them over her head, and hung them down in front of her chest. Even if it's only for a while, I already feel very satisfied. Not only you, you big fool, but also that kind and understanding little girl. The juniors of Tong Tian Tower are quite interesting now. Not only is there this cool human Jizun, there is also this naughty and mischievous kid who is very bold. He is so young, but he dared to come to the Radiance Mountain to challenge the heavenly chariot. I really don't know what to say. The peerless emperor nodded. Hee, if that's the case, it's a bit like a big fool who ran to the heavenly realm to cause trouble, but ended up being beaten badly. The flower fairy laughed. I'm different from him, I'm much stronger than him. The peerless emperor quickly denied. Of course you're much stronger than him now, but back then, maybe you weren't even 1/10 of him. The flower fairy covered her mouth and laughed. Anyway, I'm stronger than him. I'm sorry I said I would take you out, but, until now, I haven't fulfilled my promise. The peerless emperor didn't look at his lover, but his deep voice was full of apology. It's okay. The flower fairy gently waved her hand. You also know that I died a long time ago. My body is gone, and my godhead is also gone. Even my soul has dissipated in the divine curse and deep sleep. Only a trace of protective willpower is left to guard this place. The god's stone body that still exists now is my responsibility, not the original me. Big fool, I understand what you want to say, but that's not important, really not important. But you, the Radiance Mountain's Temple Jizun, that martial arts madman, has already become so powerful? You have always been full of confidence, why are you filled with the desire to die now? No, it's not the heavenly chariot. The peerless emperor smiled. His smile was like the sun and the moon, a golden arrow that emitted thousands of rays of light. The flower fairy's face was full of surprise, and she asked curiously, "It's not the heavenly chariot?" The peerless emperor couldn't stop laughing, and after a long time, he slowly shook his head and said, "It's not the heavenly chariot. I asked the divine armament old man in the upper realm, and he said that if I continue to persevere, I am destined to die in the hands of another man, but it's not the heavenly chariot." Then who? The flower fairy almost couldn't believe it. In the entire heaven realm, other than the deity Temple Jizun, who else had the ability to kill the man standing beside her who could lift the whole world with just his arms? I also don't know, maybe it's that person. The peerless emperor laughed. The little sapling needs to grow, and the big tree can't block its sunlight. Otherwise, the law of nature will definitely destroy the trunk of the big tree, wither its branches and leaves, and finally overturn under the feet of the little sapling, becoming fertilizer for its growth. This is the law of nature. The big tree has lived long enough, and it's time for it to return to nature. You really don't regret it at all? The flower fairy turned her head and asked. Back then, I also relied on the overturned fertilizer of the big tree to grow. Those big trees that provided me with growth didn't regret it, so what reason do I have to regret it? The peerless emperor laughed out loud. If you had always been atoning in the Black Tower, you probably wouldn't have today's fate. The flower fairy sighed. It has nothing to do with you, this is my personal wish. If I hide in the Black Tower, I can indeed live, but that's meaningless. People have to do something to not waste their lives, or else what's the fun in living for tens of thousands of years? Moreover, that little sapling may be a kind of world tree, and when it grows up, who knows how many big trees will be willing to provide it with nutrients. I want to provide them, but maybe I'm not qualified. The peerless emperor held up the sky, and his head tilted slightly, looking gently at the flower fairy under his feet. If the big tree overturns, maybe it can turn into another stone. In this way, the stones on the divine mountain will have companions, right? 2 stones with companions? That's good, I like this kind of fate. The flower fairy nodded lightly. Unfortunately, I can't go back to take a look at the stairway, and then look at the valley of life that is like a warm home, and the world tree that has brought me countless inspirations. Maybe, not long after, a little sapling that is absorbing the nutrients of the world tree will run over. At that time, when you see it, it is equivalent to seeing your home. Around that little sapling, there are many flowers, each one of them growing full of vitality. Isn't it just like the situation in your garden back then? The peerless emperor comforted with a gentle voice. But this is the scale world behind the divine gate. When the flower fairy heard this, she didn't dare to believe that there would be such a change. According to the arrangement of our fate, that should be the case. The peerless emperor smiled incomparably. That's right, the roots of the world tree can permeate the entire world. No matter where it is, it will exist. The flower fairy also smiled. After an unknown period of time, she finally stopped smiling. With a hint of sadness, her empty eyes looked up at the peerless emperor who was holding up the sky. You did it on purpose, didn't you? The big tree can't change the fate of the stone, so let the other little sapling grow quickly, let it grow into the world tree, isn't that good? Okay. However, the little sapling might not know that the big tree has given it a lot of sunlight. It doesn't matter, as long as the big tree and the stone are together, it's fine. The scale world was divided into 2 extremes. On one side was the divine mountain. The picturesque divine mountain was an incomparably peaceful land of life. On the other side was the Dead Sea, a land of destruction where only death existed. It was impossible for any life, not even the creatures of the lower realm, to exist here. Only gods who had transcended the mortal world and transcended the essence of life could survive in such a harsh environment. In between the divine mountain and the Dead Sea, there was an indescribably huge scale canyon that mortals couldn't cross. It was the canyon that blocked the confrontation and conflict between the 2 polar regions. On the scale canyon, there was a bridge. It was like the lever of the scale world set in the center. It was unknown how many tens of thousands of miles long, but the width was also at least 100 miles. Ji-Zun flew down on the bridge and found that the abyss below was like a prison, bottomless, and the cold wind here was like a blade, blowing people all over their bodies. What she didn't expect was that there wasn't someone waiting for her in the middle of the bridge, but this person seemed to be someone she knew. Chapter 1343. Dongfang. Although Ji-Zun had never seen him before, she was confident that her senses would not be wrong. However, why was Dongfang inside the gate of God? Wasn't he setting up outside? You are indeed worthy of the title of the number 1 person in the Tower of Babel. A middle-aged scholar dressed in white stood in front of the Supreme Being. He had a smile on his face, and he gracefully greeted the Supreme Being with innate etiquette. It was as if the innate beings or sages were meeting in the Tower of Babel. As expected of the number 1 trader of Tong Tian Tower, Mr. Dongfang. When Ji-Zun heard this, she unceremoniously raised her lips and ridiculed him. Ji-Zun, please don't be too surprised by my appearance. Dongfang was not angry at all. He was still graceful. In fact, I can come here because of one person. Of course, you may already have the answer in your heart. Peerless Emperor? I think you must have done something that forced him to agree to bring you in. Jizun did not know the reason, but she could guess a little. Although the peerless senior is very reluctant, he promised me that year, and he must fulfill this promise. So, when I found him and asked him to bring me into the gate of God, he could not refuse. You and Yu Titan, and even Fei Wenli, who was hiding and preparing to give Tianyu a fatal blow, must be very strange. Why am I so sure that I will win in the end? Now you should understand, right? Yu Titan, who is outside the gate of God, even if he has the ability to go against the heavens, it is impossible for him to open the ancient gate of God and enter the balanced world, let alone find me within a short period of 10 days. So smart. Jizun snorted coldly. Although she did not want to admit it, Dongfang was indeed a synonym for a flawless plan. Thank you. Once the laws of the chessboard world and the maze world cannot be broken, Tong Tian Tower will definitely collapse and sink forever. Do you understand? Why am I so confident? Because I am using the power of wisdom. This ancient gate that forbids everything, this balanced world that isolates everything, is the source of my confidence. Kill you, and everything will be solved. Jizun was not moved, her face was as cold as ever. She had always been used to using the most direct means. As long as Dongfang was killed, the chessboard world would automatically collapse and disappear, and everything would be destroyed. As for whether it was Yu Yang who did it or not, it was not important at all. If it was him who did it, it would not be impossible. No. Hearing this, Dongfang shook his head lightly. He smiled confidently, turned around gracefully, and slowly walked away. Here, even the peerless Emperor Wu Shuang can't kill me. Perhaps I will never be able to leave this balanced world, and I will never be able to take a step out of the divine gate. However, I can stay here and quietly watch the scene of Tong Tian Tower collapsing. That will be the greatest entertainment and meaning for the rest of my life. Goodbye, Supreme Human. I hope that you, the #1 expert of Tong Tian Tower, can persevere under the rage and ruthless attacks of the countless fallen gods in the Dead Sea until Titan Yu arrives. The premise is that he knows about your disappearance and the secret method to enter the gate of God. Ha ha ha, although the East is not the strongest, the wisdom of the East is enough to turn the whole world into a chessboard, turning everything into black and white pieces. My fate is decided by me, and the fate of others is also decided by my wisdom. Dongfang threw his head back and laughed heartily as he left. A few black figures silently snuck in front of Jizun. In the darkness, these murderous fellows were like leopards and wolves that had discovered their prey. They were only waiting for the right opportunity to brandish their claws and teeth, choosing their target to devour. Jizun's face was indifferent, as if she did not see anything around her. As the black figures slowly approached, there was even a hint of disdain in the depths of her eyes. Her hands moved mysteriously, and at the same time, she raised them high above her head. Such a gentle movement was as graceful as a dance. However, her mouth was filled with ruthless mockery. Mere clowns, you dare to come out and act presumptuously? Just as her ice pearl-like words fell, there was only a vast ocean of light left between heaven and earth. As vast as the sea. In an instant, it drowned the whole balanced world. Billions of light arrows, light darts, light daggers, light swords, light spears, and light feathers formed a vast ocean of light that engulfed the whole world. It was so mighty that even the consciousness of life was drowned out on the divine mountain. The peerless emperor and the flower fairy's expressions changed. The two of them saw that the barrier of the divine mountain's laws was also densely covered with these kinds of light thorns. Many of the light thorns even penetrated deep into the barrier, reaching right in front of the two of them. Fortunately, the peerless emperor used his divine power to condense a thick barrier like a city wall in time to resist the attack of this rain of light. Otherwise, the petrified flower fairy might have been seriously injured. Even at such a long distance, this kind of light still had such a terrifying power. Then what about the enemy on the battlefield? The peerless emperor and the flower fairy looked at each other. Both of them believed that under this kind of terrifying light that made people despair, the enemy would probably not have it easy, a black figure. He was directly annihilated. Even his appearance was not shown in time. He was instantly killed. Another one fell to the ground with heavy injuries. Although he was not dead yet, even a blind person could see that he was dead. His injuries were so serious that even a baby might not be able to withstand a punch from him. The remaining 3 were rolling around on the ground, wailing and wailing in agony. Their miserable cries made one's hair stand on end, and the entire canyon was filled with these terrifying echoes. So weak. What a failure! A lazy voice sounded behind Ji-zoon. The owner of this voice seemed to be very disappointed and dissatisfied with the wailing shadow. Soon you will also join their ranks. Ji-zoon did not raise her eyebrows or move her eyelashes. She felt that the person behind her was actually the same kind of trash. This joke is really funny. The lazy voice behind her laughed a few times. You can't even tell the difference between a probing war beast and a real god? Is this the eyesight and strength of the current strongest person in Tong Tian Tower? Please, can Tong Tian Tower not be so depraved? There should at least be a few god-level rankers with god thrones. What's the point of having a yellow-haired little girl who hasn't even grown her hair out? That's right, I have done a lot of evil and have been locked up, but that doesn't mean that you can insult me like this. I will sign up for the second game. Although she is a little young, the power of the light is still not bad. Another voice came from the sky. Does Master Xian Kong also want to participate? No, I just want to watch the show. An old voice floated down from the sky. With that lunatic subtraction common life making a move, this little girl probably won't even have bones left in the end. I also don't want to snatch her away. An incomparably seductive female voice came out from the abyss, as if it had always been hidden in the bottom of people's hearts. It was only at this moment that it sneaked out, preparing to secretly nibble away at people's hearts and souls while they were intoxicated by her decadent voice. Everyone, just watch. I will be quick and kill this yellow-haired little girl first. Then, I will make 32 different postures for everyone to watch and admire. The guy with the lazy voice behind him should be the subtract the common life that the seductive voice mentioned. Good. A few old ghosts who were hiding somewhere took the opportunity to clap their hands and jeer. Watch my heaven and earth shatter. Subtraction common life's lazy voice was still as annoying as before, but the power that erupted from his body was comparable to the explosion of the sun. The storm of divine power caused the world to tremble under his will, and everything was instantly destroyed. Not to mention a person, even a mountain or an ocean would be flattened and evaporated by this storm of divine power after an unknown period of time. The storm of divine power calmed down. The Heaven and Earth Shatter Canyon, as well as the Sky Snake Bridge, which had collapsed everywhere, slowly recovered under the ancient will and the law of balance, returning to their previous state. However, the Ji-zoon in the center of the bridge had disappeared, as if she had evaporated into thin air. No one saw her, and no one knew if she was still alive or not. Under the attack of subtraction common life's heaven and earth shatter, everyone could not avoid it, and could not sense the changes in the center of the battlefield. However, almost everyone believed that the result was predetermined. She must have been annihilated by subtraction common life's divine power. Below the throne, there was no god, no enemy. Aya, too weak. I already held back and only used 30% of my divine power. Who would have thought that the result would be so disappointing? Peerless, why don't you come and fight with me? Skysplit Tower's juniors can't even withstand a single blow. Isn't this too shameful for your Skysplit Tower? The lazy subtraction life was like a deflated balloon, his face filled with boredom. You are not qualified to fight with me. Peerless Emperor Wu Shuang's words were even more powerful than the world's fiercest slap, hitting Subtraction Common Life's face. What did you say? Subtraction Common Life was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, his whole body bristled. Behind you! The voice of the person who signed up to be the second to participate in the game shouted, but before he could say anything, a fist had already landed on Subtraction Common Life's face. Ah, it's really satisfying. Subtraction Common Life was hit by the heavy fist and took 2 big steps back. Blood gushed out from his mouth and nose like a fountain, but he was not angry. Instead of retreating, he moved forward and waved his fist like a madman, bombarding Ji Zun, who had returned to the battlefield. Ji Zun raised her delicate hand and blocked the opponent's heavy fist. Her other hand held Subtraction Common Life's elbow and skillfully pulled Subtraction Common Life's entire body up. Subtraction Common Life flew out in midair and attacked Ji Zun's lower abdomen. Ji Zun was even faster. Her long legs drew an arc, her waist was like a bow, and her feet were as fast as a meteor. She stepped on Subtraction Common Life's left ribs, and the force penetrated through. Subtraction Common Life's heart felt as if it had been hit by a lightning hammer, and it was so painful that it almost exploded. Subtraction Common Life's attack missed, and his whole body was pulled up in the air. He struggled with all his might, and still wanted to hook his knee to hit Ji Zun's head. Unfortunately, Ji Zun's figure disappeared in an instant and flashed above Subtraction Common Life. She turned her body and kicked. Like a heavy axe, she chopped down on Subtraction Common Life's back, causing Subtraction Common Life, who had thick skin and was extremely resistant to beatings, to let out an uncontrollable cry of pain from his throat. Subtraction Common Life fell down heavily, and his hands sank deep into the bridge until his arms were gone. His eyes had not yet recovered from the repeated painful blows, and there was another delicate foot that made people sigh. It turned into a stream of light and heavily hit Subtraction Common Life's chin. Boom! Subtraction Common Life flipped dozens of times in the sky, and finally smashed onto the surface of the snake bridge like a meteorite falling to the ground. His face was covered in blood and he was in a sorry state. When he coughed and stood up from the bridge shakily with a hint of dizziness, the seductive female voice couldn't help but laugh. Oh, Master Subtraction Common Life's big move is really beautiful. However, this doesn't seem to be a heaven falling and earth splitting, but a hungry dog chewing mud, right? Haha, not bad, not bad, this should be the first of the 32 postures. The old voice of Monk Xian Kong also opened his mouth to mock. Good, what a wonderful performance! The voice that signed up for the second game was stunned for a while, but quickly reacted and laughed loudly. All of you, shut up! Subtraction Common Life twisted his neck and moved his wrist. With a face full of anger, he roared, I was careless just now and let that little girl get away with it. Now I'm going to be serious. So it was an accident. The seductive female voice couldn't stop laughing. Not bad, not bad. There were also a few old ghosts hiding somewhere who were desperately clapping and cheering. However, their cheers made Subtraction Common Life's face turn black. Damn, what kind of teammates are these? Of course, cheering was one thing. Now everyone saw a fact. That is, this seemingly weak little girl was not someone to be trifled with. Chapter 1344. Where did Yu Yang go? The middle-aged Uncle Zizai, who was preparing to kill him with his big move, couldn't understand. Even his companion, who was watching from the side to prevent the shameless third young master from escaping, couldn't understand how this sneaky brat escaped. When they came out from the world of nothingness, they discovered that Radiance Mountain was the same as before. There were no changes, as if there were no Tong Tian Tower martial artists invading, as if Titan Yu had never come. He ran so fast. The companion who was hiding in the sky was a little unhappy. Letting Yu Yang escape from under his eyes was a failure. I have a feeling that this Titan Yu did not go far. Happy Sky, who had the sharpest senses, didn't know if it was an illusion, but he actually sensed that Titan Yu was still nearby. He didn't escape like everyone thought. Is that so? Zizai also had a slight feeling, but he didn't dare to confirm it because everything was quiet and there was nothing around. Split up and search. The one who was hiding in the sky was an impatient person and acted first. However, after the three of them had searched all over the Radiance Mountain, they didn't find any traces of Yu Yang. Instead, the feeling that they thought was an illusion became stronger and stronger. Happy Sky thought for a long time and suddenly made a judgment. Maybe the guardian deity opened the ancient passage. After he entered, he was trapped in a space not far from Radiance Mountain. That's why we have this illusion. If that's the case, then there's nothing to worry about. With the guardian deity suppressing him, no matter if it's Titan Yu or someone else, there's only one result: eternal seal. Zizai heard this and his body trembled slightly. Could it be my master's request? This Titan Yu needs the guardian deity to make a move? The violent-tempered companion who was hiding in the sky laughed. Let's go take a look and the truth will be revealed. Let's enter the ancient passage too. Anyway, we've already been allowed to enter. Even if the guardian deity didn't make a move, we can still go and ask him to come out. Why don't we leave one behind? Zizai had some misgivings. The ancient passage wasn't easy to enter. Even if one entered, it wasn't easy to get out. It was said that the most ancient passage could lead directly to the Times Square in the gods' ruins of Tong Tian Tower. In that kind of place with the eternal ancient will and the restrictions of the ancient laws, even the gods had to be careful. There's no need for that. It's enough to have that fellow by my lord's side. Skies will immediately rejected Carefree Heaven's suggestion. Let's go in together. If the three of us work as one, it'll be easier for us to take care of each other if anything happens. Joyous Sky also supported their companion who was hiding in the sky. Faced with a 2-to-1 decision, the experienced and prudent Sky of Freedom could only choose to compromise. After entering the ancient passage, they started to take the first step in catching up to Yu Yang. In that case, was Yu Yang in the ancient passage? This was for sure. After escaping from the world of nothingness, Yu Yang was ready to leave the Radiance Mountain that was full of traps, and he also decided to temporarily give up on challenging the deity's Templar's supreme heavenly chariot, who had a backer. What he wanted to do the most was to return to the grimoire world and meet the heavenly sword goddess in his dreams again. He wanted to ask her about the heavenly throne. If she had been helping him condense the heavenly throne, then he would learn from her how to use the power of the heavenly throne. If not, then he would ask her to help him evolve a heavenly throne. Otherwise, without this, it would be impossible for him to challenge Heavenly Chariot and kick the deity's Templar's supreme Heavenly Chariot, who had been training crazily, out of the Radiance Mountain. However, when Yu Yang came out, he discovered that the entrance to the ancient passage had shattered in front of him. Through the shattered void, Yu Yang discovered a person, which made him give up on the idea of returning to the grimoire world immediately. This person was currently fighting. If Yu Yang saw this person fighting normally, he would definitely calmly return to the grimoire world to rest, and only come out after he had a good sleep. This was because this person was not someone he needed to worry about. On the contrary, when he fought with this person, he needed to worry about his enemies, whether they would let him hit them too hard or torture them too miserably. Yu Yang only took a few more glances and found that something was wrong. The person who was fighting was actually covered with cuts and bruises, bathed in blood. He, who could have crushed all his opponents, was now bitterly holding on. Yu Yang was even worried that if he did not rescue him, this guy would not be able to hold on for the next 10 seconds. "Don't be afraid, I'm coming!" Yu Yang shouted and rushed into the ancient passage like Dima jumping out of the bushes. "You idiot!" His support not only did not make the person who was gritting his teeth and fighting bitterly feel grateful, but instead he was scolded. Usually you are quite smart, why are you like a pig now? Hurry up and get out, this is a fight between adults, it has nothing to do with a kid like you. What do you want me to say about you? What bullshit genius that only appears once in 10,000 years, idiot that only appears once in 10,000 years. Don't you know that this is a trap? I'm prepared to trick you. The ancient passage could have opened anywhere else. Why did it have to open right in front of you? Do you think you are the savior? Do you think you can save my life just because you stupidly rushed in? You don't know anything, yet you still dare to show off like this. Motherf ***, aren't you looking for death? Yes, I'm an idiot. Yu Yang behaved very humbly, lowering his head and allowing the person to scold him. How did I get to know an idiot like you? You are really infuriating me. If not for the fact that the guy was busy, he might have given Yu Yang a slap. It's normal for an idiot to know an idiot. Birds of a feather flock together. Yu Yang laughed. His lips were red and his teeth were white, shining like the sun. Needless to say, when he laughed like this, he was really asking for a beating. God, please let me die. I might as well vomit 3 liters of blood and die. Not only was I beaten up, you even sent this bastard to anger me before I die. What have I done wrong in this life? How dare you punish me like this? The guy who scolded him really vomited blood. However, it was not because he was angry but because he was beaten up. The person who beat him was at least 40,000 meters tall. Regardless of size or strength, the golden divine body could completely crush the entire field. What was more terrifying was that behind this 40,000-meter tall golden divine body, there was a miraculous divine throne that was formed by at least 400 small planets and a small sun. This divine throne was incomparably powerful. Not only could it automatically generate energy for its owner to use, it could also absorb the surrounding energy to weaken its owner's enemies and the fluctuations on the battlefield. It could even fuse with the ancient will of the ancient passage, using it to punish and suppress its enemies. Yu Yang felt that he was even smaller than an ant when compared to the golden god's body and the glorious throne. He didn't even need to lift a finger. Perhaps a casual blow from the golden divine body could annihilate Yu Yang. This was the first time that Yu Yang saw the divine throne. He looked up to the sky and sighed emotionally. So this is the divine throne. How did it come about? Is this the deity palace's supreme heavenly chariot? He is really awesome. Are you blind? A certain boss, who had a big hole in his chest, tried his best to resist the enemy's heavy punches while shouting at Yu Yang. This guy is the Radiant Mountain's guardian god. Turns out he is the Radiant God Prison's guardian and Tian Yu's half-master. You can't even tell the difference between a disciple and a master, and you still foolishly rushed to the Radiant Mountain to challenge him. Are you trying to make people laugh their teeth off? You mean, this guy is even more powerful than Tian Yu? Yu Yang expressed his shock. A certain boss was distracted for a moment, and after he finished speaking, he was almost beaten to the point of looking for his teeth on the ground. With great difficulty, he managed to block the enemy's heavy punch again. He turned around and roared at Yu Yang, "Idiot, if you have such thoughts, you're dead meat." No way? Tian Yu is more powerful than this guy? Yu Yang was really shocked. Tian Yu punched a hole in my chest. This guy beat me for a long time, but I am still alive and kicking. What do you think? A certain boss sneered. This doesn't make sense. How can a disciple be more powerful than his master? Yu Yang was extremely puzzled. Originally, he thought that his estimation was already exaggerated enough. Who knew that the supreme elder of the temple's strength was 100 times more terrifying than his estimation? If the supreme elder of the temple, Tian Yu, was stronger than this guardian god of light who was 40,000 meters tall and had a divine throne, then what was the point of fighting? He should just admit defeat. Who said that a disciple can't surpass his master? Although I don't want to admit it, Tian Yu is indeed a genius and a lunatic. A lunatic who practices martial arts, even crazier than me in the past. Do you think that anyone can punch a hole in my chest? Although it was a sneak attack and I was not prepared at that time, this is not something an ordinary person can do. A certain boss started to brag about himself as he spoke. Where's your divine throne? Take it out and fight with the enemy. Why are you still hiding it now? Seeing that the situation was not good, Yu Yang hurriedly reminded this boastful boss who was about to be beaten up again. My divine throne has long been removed by the supreme dragon god. Otherwise, if I don't beat this guy to a pulp, I won't be called Mo long. A certain boss said fiercely. A certain third young master was speechless. How many bad things did he have to do to be removed from his divine throne? Just look at the guardian divinity of light and the supreme heavenly chariot of the temple of light. They've done so many bad things, yet they haven't even been slashed once. Demonic dragon, you're the legendary saber maiden, so why are you always the one being slashed? Moreover, if your divine throne is removed, you should be hiding to accumulate karma. Why did you come to this ancient passage to fight with someone who has a divine throne and a godfather behind him? Aren't you looking for trouble? Yu Yang decided not to bother with Mo long. There was a saying that goes, unlucky people don't deserve sympathy, because bad luck is easily contagious. Whoever sympathizes with him will also be unlucky. Suddenly, the giant god, who had tortured the abyssal dragon to the point of wanting to die, stopped his attack. He looked at Yu Yang, who was watching the battle from outside. He looked up and down. It was as if he had a great interest in a little ant. The giant god nodded in the end. Not bad. You are indeed a genius. You don't have a master to watch over you. You actually managed to cultivate in a place like the Tower of Babel with your own efforts. If you weren't the fated enemy of the heavenly chariot, I would be tempted to take you in as my disciple. Young man, you are very bold. If you think that with the support of Fei Wenli, that little snake demon, and the protection of a Qilin cub, you can challenge fate and become enemies with our Radiance Mountain, then you are gravely mistaken. In life, you have to do something for it to be meaningful. Yu Yang's face was full of smiles, like a child who was praised for receiving red packets during the new year. Besides, how do you know it won't work if you don't try? It's good to have confidence, but strength is the prerequisite for everything. The giant god's face was neither angry nor happy, and he said seriously, not to mention a child like you, even if Emperor Wu Shuang is peerless, he does not have the ability to go against the heavens. Do you think he does not want to reverse fate? However, before he was imprisoned in the Black Tower, he was defeated by my hands, and after being imprisoned in the Black Tower, his strength has plummeted. Even if you can successfully persuade him to stand on your side in the end, he will not last more than 1,000 moves against me. The fall of Tong Tian Tower, and the fall of the martial artists of Soaring Dragon, Heaven's Stairway, and Demon Abyss are all inevitable. You mean we should all wait for death? Yu Yang clapped his hands and laughed. Good idea, let us think about it. You can choose to resist, but no matter what you do, it will be of no use. Even if you awaken the demonic dragon, it will still not affect anything, and you will not be able to change anything. On the contrary, because of you, the demonic dragon, the originally free and unfettered heaven realm martial artist, will fall. The giant god looked at the demonic dragon, indicating that this ending was completely caused by Yu Yang. An adult bullying a child, and you are still talking nonsense. Do you want me to die of laughter? The demonic dragon was very annoyed. If you want to fight, then fight and still pretend to be righteous. This is the truth. The giant god stretched out his hand and blocked the demonic dragon's full attack. Go, leave this place. If you think I am your boss, then listen to me and leave this place. Before you are sure, don't do anything. Others have prepared many traps, waiting for you impulsive fools to jump into. The demonic dragon burst out with all his strength and launched an attack at the giant god, hoping to take this opportunity to fight a bloody path and let Yu Yang escape successfully. I, the fool, have already jumped in, don't chase me away, okay? Yu Yang had never called the demonic dragon boss, but he suddenly felt that if this demonic dragon was a boss, he would be quite qualified. I am so angry, you bastard who is neither smart nor stupid. Do you want me to die here for nothing? No, my life can't be wasted like this. You have to let me die a meaningful death. Go, I know you have a way to leave. Don't let me die for nothing. I really can't hold on anymore. Do you want to see me beaten to death before you stop? The demonic dragon was knocked down by the giant god's punch, and he vomited blood like a waterfall. There were already countless wounds on his body, and there was almost no part of his skin that was unscathed. Of course I won't watch you get beaten to death. Yu Yang laughed, and he began to increase his divine power, like a volcano that was ready to erupt. I want to say, you are too lousy, let me teach you how to be a boss. I have been a boss for a long time, okay? You want to take the position of boss? No way. The demonic dragon got up in a roll. We will only know after we fight. Before Yu Yang finished speaking, the demonic dragon on the other side had already counterattacked the giant god like a madman, as if he did not care about his life, and his ferocity made the giant god adopt a defensive stance for the first time. Chapter 1345. Without waiting for Yu Yang to make a move. On the other side, the throne behind the giant god had already erupted with millions of glorious divine light. It fused with the space around the ancient passageway, triggering the direction of the ancient laws and ancient will. In an instant, the entire space was filled with a mysterious and vast ancient power, upgrading the space into a special battlefield. In this special battlefield, no changes could be seen with the naked eye. However, Yu Yang could definitely feel himself being infinitely shrunk. His real body did not shrink, but his divine power was condensed to the limit. It could not be easily released from his body. The 10,000-meter golden body of the demon dragon in front of him kept shrinking until it finally reverted to its original form. No, it was slightly taller than the demon dragon's original form, shrinking to about 2 meters. The giant god who stood in front of the demon dragon also underwent the same transformation. However, the giant god's shrunken body was still 8 meters tall. He stood like a mountain, and his shadow alone was enough to completely cover both the demon dragon and Yu Yang. The throne behind the giant god had now condensed into a circle with a diameter of more than 4 meters. A sun god orb revolved in the center, and around it were 4 different elemental orbs of black, white, red, and blue. Although they were not as terrifying as before, they still contained boundless divine power, and supported their master like before. As long as this throne was still there, and was not damaged or destroyed, others could forget about defeating its wielder. I see. Yu Yang sighed inwardly. No wonder it was said that no one below the god throne could match up to him. Who could fight against an enemy who had an endless supply of divine power and would never tire or be injured? At the very least, it was impossible to win in a one-on-one fight. If they wanted to win, they would probably have to rely on the strength of a group to surround and attack. Even a continuous battle would not be able to pose any threat to an opponent with a god throne. At this time, attacking together was the best choice. The giant god sent the demon dragon flying with a punch and waved at Yu Yang. If I release my divine power and use my perfect divine body to fight against you, even if I can kill you with a single move, people would laugh at me and say that I only know how to bully children. Come, I'll put away my divine body and play with you in my original form. As long as you can take 100 moves from me, I promise to let you live. Thank you very much, Senior. Yu Yang raised the Guizhong and Shuanghua swords in his hands and stabbed them into the eyes of the giant god like lightning. Be careful. The mystic dragon was not happy but shocked. He shouted a warning. 2 swords came into view. The giant god's face was expressionless. Not a single drop of blood flowed from his tightly shut eyes, and He Guizhong and Bai Shuanghua's sword qi did not display their might. It was as if they had stabbed into an empty world, giving Yu Yang a very bad feeling for the first time. He did not see that on the throne behind the giant god, 2 swords had pierced through the black soil divine pearl and the white water divine pearl respectively. Although the sword qi entered his eyes, the giant god's body did not suffer any damage at all. Yu Yang retreated hastily. However, it was too late. In the 1/1,000,000th of a second that Yu Yang used his body technique, the giant god had counterattacked. His arms disappeared, and the golden giant fists turned into thousands of meteors, densely covering any space that Yu Yang could escape to. The fists were denser than raindrops, extremely accurate, and not a single punch missed. All of them hit the target. Da-da-da-da-da, Yu Yang rolled more than 100 times in the sky and finally smashed heavily into the space barrier of the ancient passage. The blood that burst out of his mouth drew a long blood rainbow and splashed all over the sky. He felt that every bone in his body was groaning, and even his fingertips had the illusion of being smashed by the opponent's fist. If it was not for the strong heart that had evolved into the heart of the true dragon that was still beating, he suspected that he had been killed by the opponent's fist. He raised his willpower to the maximum, and fought with the last bit of strength that had not been scattered in his body. He used his hands to support his knees as much as possible, and gritted his teeth to stand up. In Yu Yang's entire life, he had never felt that standing was actually so difficult. It was not easy at all. His heart and lungs were breathing rapidly like bellows, and his blood was circulating crazily, desperately trying to recover his injured body. Even so, Yu Yang still felt that his vision was turning black, and there was a kind of dizziness and bone-deep pain. It made him want to just fall down and sleep comfortably, completely free from this pain and exhaustion, and never wake up again. I am a peerless genius that only appears once in 10,000 years in Tong Tian Tower. I am the new prison emperor. I am everyone's hope. I can do it. Yu Yang tried his best to stand straight, and used all his strength to raise his head. He would never admit defeat. No matter what kind of opponent, no matter what kind of blow, he would never surrender. This was the Yu clan's third young master. This was the essence of a man from another world. However, when Yu Yang's eyes regained focus, he couldn't help but cry out in sorrow for his reckless attack. In front of Yu Yang, a man dripping with blood opened his arms like a guardian, protecting Yu Yang. On his body, there were at least 100 fist marks and hundreds of bloody holes where his muscles and skin couldn't withstand the pressure. He was a certain boss who was never acknowledged, but was very qualified, Mo Long. He was the one who stepped forward bravely. In the end, in the most dangerous moment, he took the brunt of the giant god's torrent of attacks for Yu Yang. He was the one who took the brunt of most of the attacks for Yu Yang. If it wasn't for this boss who opened his arms like a guardian, he might not be able to stand up anymore. Even if he was indeed a peerless genius that only appears once in 10,000 years in Tong Tian Tower, he might not be able to stand up anymore. What are you looking at? I am not dead yet. Mo Long was very satisfied with Yu Yang's current expression. He really wanted to mock this brat a few times. How about it? Am I not doing well as a boss? Do I need you to teach me? I have been a boss for a long time. And is there anyone better at being a boss than me? Really, could it be that I was given the title of the most loyal person in the heavens for nothing? Unfortunately, the giant god did not give him a chance to boast. The second wave of attacks was about to begin. You definitely can't block it. Charge with me. Let's fight. Mo Long did not keep Yu Yang behind. He knew that once the guardian divinity of light began to attack, no place would be safe. Only when Yu Yang was by his side, he could reluctantly feel at ease. Kill! Yu Yang's eyes were now red, and he roared like an injured tiger. His speed was even faster than Mo Long's, and his sword aura was aimed straight at the giant god. Even a grain of rice can shine? The giant god casually stretched out his hand and caught Yu Yang's sword chi with 2 fingers. Then, when Yu Yang unleashed his illusion moon divine power and kicked out a crescent moon, the giant god flicked his fingers and sent the crescent moon that was born into eternity flying into the sky. He even used his thumb to easily block the demon dragon's heavy punch. The giant god swept his elbow and sent Mo Long flying like a cannonball. His other right hand, which had been accumulating power for a long time, turned the infinite divine power into a divine axe that could split the heavens and earth. It met Yu Yang's head and chopped down. Yu Yang felt that he was locked on by his opponent's divine sense. Even if he escaped to the ends of the sky or rushed into another space, he could not escape this fatal blow from the giant god. He might as well go all out. Instead of retreating, he advanced and became one with the divine sense of the moon of destiny that was sent flying into the sky. It heavily struck back at the giant god. Even if he died, he would drag his opponent down with him. This was the style of Yu Yang Titan Yu. This was the character of a man from another world who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. You want my life? Sure, but you'll have to pay with your life. The moon of destiny was an eternal existence. Even a god with a throne could not deny it. If he could return the giant god's blow, it would not be a loss for him. Naive. 2 beams of divine light shot out of the giant god's eyes and turned into 2 halberds that blocked the moon of destiny. Meanwhile, the heaven-splitting divine axe in his hand was still chopping down with indomitable will. Do you think I'm dead? Mo Long had returned at some point. His arms were above Yu Yang's head and clamped down on the blade of the divine axe. Humph, you're courting death. The giant god pressed down hard. He felt that it was better this way. With a single swing of his axe, he was able to kill the demon dragon and Titan Yu. With a single swing, he was able to easily deal with 2 enemies. The demonic dragon was indeed unable to withstand the giant god's terrifying divine power. The guardian divine lord's divine power was already above his, and with the help of the divine throne, the demonic dragon was no match for it at all. Moreover, this boss who was not at his peak had previously fought a bloody battle with the peerless emperor. The demonic dragon really wanted to shout at Yu Yang, "Go!" However, under the pressure of the giant god, he could not even make a sound. He only hoped that Yu Yang, this silly boy, would be more alert and take the opportunity to escape. He would run as far as he could and not waste the opportunity that he fought for. Yu Yang did not escape. He was like a fool. Not only did he not run, he continued to attack the giant god. If running would also lead to death, then running would be meaningless. Moreover, he couldn't just abandon the mystic dragon and run away by himself. The Yu clan's 3rd young master was usually not loyal, but it did not mean that he was a running tortoise who would abandon his friends in battle. F***ck, are you an idiot? Mo Long desperately raised the godly axe that had cut into his forehead a little higher. His voice was squeezed out through his teeth. I am. Yu Yang's eyes were bloodshot. Blood seeped out from the corner of his eyes. He realized that his punches and kicks were completely ineffective. He roared crazily. He stabbed his right hand into his heart, using his heart's blood as a blade, turning blood into a sword, turning it into a sword of life. This was the Jizun's move. When Mo Long was about to be cut in half by the godly axe, the sword of life in Yu Yang's hand finally erupted. The giant god reached out and pinched it with 2 fingers. However, the sword of life directly penetrated the gap between his fingers. The godly throne behind him rotated rapidly. A flaming divine shield blocked the path of the sword of life. At the same time, countless electric arcs followed the sword of life and quickly spread towards Yu Yang's hands, attacking Yu Yang's bleeding heart. What kind of person was the giant god? He could tell at a glance that this brat's blood sword was completely supported by the blood from his heart. If the blood from his heart was interrupted and spurted out, then the power of this blood sword would be greatly weakened. Yu Yang gritted his teeth and charged forward. He had no way to retreat. If he had even the slightest thought of retreating, he and the demon dragon would both be split into two under the godly axe. The sword of life pierced through the flaming divine shield and advanced unstoppably. Finally, it successfully pierced the giant god's skin. But it was not the original target. It was not the giant god's heart. It was the giant god's left palm. At the moment when Yu Yang rushed forward with all his might, the giant god calmly returned his hand and caught Yu Yang's sword of life's ultimate sword aura with one palm. On the other side, Mo Long, who wanted to use the godly axe to hold him back, was kicked away by the giant god. He did not even have the chance to attack. The giant god blocked the sword of life with one palm. He raised the godly axe with one hand and looked down at Yu Yang in the air. I now understand how you cultivated to this level. You fought with your life. You have such ruthlessness at such a young age. It is true that you could defeat many enemies who were originally above you. Unfortunately, you are now facing me. You don't even have a godly throne. Even if you fought 100 times harder, it would be useless. The godly axe in the giant god's hand slashed down. Mo Long pounced. Holding on to Yu Yang, he hurriedly dodged. Blood gushed out from his waist like a waterfall. He was almost cleaved in half by the godly axe. Yu Yang attacked wildly in the air. The moon of destiny once again spun under Yu Yang's will. It mysteriously dodged the halberds and slashed at the giant god's neck. The giant god had to reach out and use his divine power to gently brush it away. But the demon dragon seized that moment. He brought Yu Yang with him and turned into a stream of light in the ancient passage. In the blink of an eye, they escaped thousands of miles away. Slash! The giant god swung the godly axe in his hand and jumped up high. His whole body bent into the shape of a bow, and when he reached his limit, he turned around and slashed forward. Even the ancient passage, which was sealed by the ancient laws, instantly had a spatial crack that could never be healed. The power of the godly axe pierced through the boundless space and reached the demon dragon's back thousands of miles away. Running away was meaningless for the godly throne and the guardian god of light, whose will was half integrated into the ancient passage. His attack had no distance to speak of. As long as his divine sense could reach it. No barrier, no distance, nothing could stop him. Chapter 1346. With the heavy swing of the godly axe, the mystic dragon and Yu Yang were in danger. Just as the guardian deity of light thought that the battle was over, what happened next stunned him. The reason was that the mystic dragon had returned. Not only did he rush back from thousands of miles away, but he also rushed into the giant god's blind spot, a spot where the godly axe could not hit. Not only did the mystic dragon return, but he also brought 6 dragons with him. Since the start of the battle, the mystic dragon had never revealed his true strength. Now, at the moment of life and death, he used a secret move that no one knew for 100,000 years. 6 dragons return. No one knew the reason for the mystic dragon's secret move. In addition to the forgetfulness of time, there was another reason. The mystic dragon's enemies were all killed by this move. The mystic dragon did not have a throne, but it did not mean that he was weak below the throne. He was just cut off by the supreme dragon god and could not be used. His strength could not be evaluated by the martial artists below the throne. If anyone really did this, then the result would be very regretful, just like the giant god now. There was no power that could stop the 6 dragons' return. Not to mention 6 dragons, even the power of one dragon was an unstoppable existence. Ah! The giant god could not help but let out a cry of pain. Under the guidance of the mystic dragon's will, the 6 golden dragons pierced through the giant god's limbs, head and heart. They bit through the giant god's body and squeezed out from the throne behind. The 4 elemental god pearls almost burst, shattering into ice beads and falling to the ground. Only the larger sun god pearl in the middle continued to emit supreme divine light after the two dragons passed through it. The transparent hole in the giant god's head quickly recovered under the divine light of the sun god pearl. But the 5 bloody holes in the heart and limbs were not so simple. The mystic dragon, who had endured until now and succeeded in his counterattack, would not miss the opportunity to further expand his victory. Not only was the guy from another world good at chasing after victory. He, the mystic dragon, who was once known as the #1 villain in heaven, was also good at it. Even his control of timing was better than the mystic dragon. Just now I return that to you. If you think that I can only wait to die when I see you, then you are very wrong. And now this is the interest you owe me. The mystic dragon's hands turned into terrifying claws and directly attacked the enemy's chest and abdomen. In a barbaric and bloody manner, he pried open the giant god's ribs. At the moment when the giant god's protective divine power repelled him, he took out something black and bloody. Roar, roar, roar. The giant god was furious. He tossed aside his divine axe and swung his meteor-like astral fist, ready to beat the demon dragon to a pulp. Don't forget about me. Yu Yang had been waiting for a long time. When the power of the giant god's throne was broken by the mystic dragon's 6 dragons' counterattack, he began his counterattack. A moon of fate slashed the back of the giant god's neck. Under the eternal divine power of fate, even an existence like the light guardian divine venerable could not help but sway and freeze for half a second. Half a second was meaningless to most people, but to a guy from another world who was good at seizing opportunities, it was enough for him to do many things. For example, he could raise a divine staff and smash it on the giant god's head like he was doing now. The giant god's face was completely expressionless as he took the staff head-on. The prison emperor divine staff's power was nothing to him, not to mention that it was just a divine weapon that had not fully recovered its original divine power. Again, in less than 1,000th of a second, Yu Yang launched a second wave of attack. The prison emperor divine seal that was almost reduced to a chestnut-smashing tool was lifted up and smashed heavily on the giant god's forehead. The power of this smash was no small matter. The prison emperor divine seal that was completely contracted and fused with Yu Yang's will could no longer be called the prison emperor divine seal. It was a new divine seal. However, Yu Yang still named it as the Prison Emperor Divine Seal to commemorate the Prison Emperor Zhan Feng. Its new power combined with fate to achieve eternity. It was no longer comparable to the Prison Emperor Divine Seal that the 3 great leaders had endured. The giant god's forehead cracked. However, the powerful and incomparably tenacious giant god was still unfazed. He only clenched his teeth and endured all the attacks. In 100th of a second, he reacted. He stretched out his hand and pressed down the demon dragon that was waving its claws. Then, he grabbed onto Yu Yang, who was about to launch a third wave of attack. The furious giant god opened his huge mouth and prepared to stuff the little bug that injured him into his mouth and eat him. Maybe that would be the only way to relieve the hatred in his heart. Break. After Yu Yang stuffed the god bead into his mouth, he still did not struggle to escape. On the contrary, he released a third wave of attack desperately. The creation god bead that was never used in battle was finally used. The creation god bead shot out from Yu Yang's hand and flew straight towards the giant god's throat. As long as the giant god ate this creation god bead, then the outcome of the battle could possibly be reversed. The creation god bead was something that only those who ate it would know. Although it was rarely seen, it was definitely the most powerful artifact that the man from another world had ever cultivated. Roar, roar, roar! The giant god also realized the danger. With his keen senses, of course, he would not treat it as a candy. On the contrary, he would rather swallow a black hole than touch this thing. At the moment when he bit and swallowed Yu Yang, He spat out the little bug in his mouth at an unbelievable speed, intending to use his divine power to blow away the little guy in his throat. Unfortunately, this wish did not come true. In embarrassment, he reached out without caring about his image, stuffed it directly into his mouth, and dug deep into his throat. He forcefully dug the creation God beat out from the depths of his throat. Then, he hurriedly threw it to the ground and abandoned it. Even so, his throat and the palm that had touched it were also swallowed by the creation God beat. It took a long time for it to recover. That's amazing. What kind of treasure is that? The demon dragon leaned over and looked at the creation God bead in Yu Yang's hand. In terms of treasures, he also had a lot, but compared to Yu Yang, he felt that he had lived all these years in vain. This damn bastard had a basket full of divine weapons. It was 100 million times more envious, jealous, and hateful. It's just a creation God bead. Don't you have one? Yu Yang spread it out in his palm unconcernedly. His smug expression almost made the demon dragon choke him to death. Damn it! The demon dragon stuffed a piece of black bloody thing in his hand into his mouth, turning his grief and anger into appetite. Yu Yang was shocked when he saw it. What about me? The demon dragon swallowed the food in his mouth with great difficulty. He was very puzzled by Yu Yang's expression. Eating something, replenishing nutrition, and recovering a little physical strength, you don't have to make such a fuss, right? What was that just now? Yu Yang felt a little dizzy. I think I saw you dig it out from that guy's stomach. Yeah. It's something like heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys. Although the taste is so, it's very nourishing. When the demon dragon said that, Yu Yang almost vomited. So Li Dezue really existed. Of all the things to eat, eating this was really too shocking. Moreover, brother, don't you feel nauseous when you swallow it on the spot with blood dripping down? This young master's stomach cramps just by looking at it. The demon dragon wiped the corner of his mouth with an indifferent expression. This made the guy from another world feel that the gap between the generations really existed. The gap of 100,000 years was really a difference between heaven and earth. Perhaps 100,000 years ago, this kind of thing like digging out the enemy's stomach and eating it was fashionable, but it was not possible now. Today, 100,000 years later, it was the era of the river crabs. Brother, what you did was too barbaric. It was not in line with the spiritual civilization of the new socialist countryside. Even if you are a glutton, you can't just eat everything. Eating random things will cause your intestines to rot. The guy from another world used a lot of effort to stop himself from vomiting. The demon dragon used his sharp claws to pick his teeth. He was incomparably disdainful of the guy from another world who was making a fuss over nothing. You don't even want to eat such a good thing, you're stealing a treasure. Yu Yang was speechless. Alright. If this was considered stealing a treasure, then he would accept it. What other moves do you have? Use them all. Otherwise, you can go to hell. The guardian divine Lord of Light was very angry, but he did not lose control and roar, nor did he attack crazily. Instead, he was extremely rational and extremely calm. After reflecting on his gains and losses just now, he made up his mind to carry out his original will and kill the two opponents in front of him. To be honest, I really don't have any trump cards left, but I still have a way to seal your throne again. The demon dragon did not need to signal. Yu Yang had already tacitly moved forward together, one on the left and one on the right, attacking the giant god. Before the other party's throne was sealed, no matter what attack it would be ineffective. Only by using the 6 dragons to seal the throne like just now could it cause effective damage. Although the guardian divine Lord of Light had now completely recovered with the help of his throne, the fact that he had successfully attacked just now told Yu Yang that the throne was not omnipotent, or perhaps the throne in front of him was not omnipotent. As long as it was sealed, then the master would still be hurt. There was even another possibility, and that was death. The giant god was not careless this time. He did not want to suffer another 6 dragons' counterattack. Being tricked just now had become the greatest humiliation in his life. Now, he definitely could not and would not suffer another 6 dragons' counterattack. He used his greatest rationality to control the situation and decided that before he killed the demon dragon, he would not let his consciousness and will lose control in the slightest. Twin dragons playing with pearls. 2 golden dragons shot out from the demon dragon's arms. They were larger than the previous 6 dragons, and more than 100 times more powerful. As soon as they appeared, they surpassed their master. Playing. They easily evaded the giant god's lightning interception. They seemed slow but were actually fast. One on the left and one on the right, they naughtily fought to bite and pull at the throne behind the giant god. The divine throne spun rapidly like a wheel, instantly shooting out millions of divine light. Every ray of light was like a divine sword, incomparably sharp. The demon dragon and Yu Yang were affected, and the injuries on their bodies increased like raindrops. However, the 2 golden dragons were still playing with each other. They shook their heads as they evaded the attacks of the divine swords of light. Not only were they not injured, but they also pulled at the throne even further, slowly dragging it away from the giant god's back. The giant god turned around and his arms disappeared. Billions of shooting stars interweaved into a terrifying net of punches. It was airtight and drowned the 2 dragons like an ocean. The 2 golden dragons did not retreat. Instead, they continued to drag the throne away from their bodies. Their bodies were being destroyed bit by the giant god's punches. However, before that happened, the throne they were dragging and restraining could no longer support its master like before. Although this was not a seal, but a temporary restriction, it was enough to make Yu Yang feel pleasantly surprised. If this was the case, he still could not grasp the opportunity. In that case, he would not be called Titan Yu, but an idiot. Die. On the other side, the demon dragon also unleashed his greatest power and attacked. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.